The warp screamed. Not in metaphor, not in the half-understood warnings of navigators or the fevered visions of unsanctioned psychers, but in genuine, reality-tearing agony as two hells collided. Dimensions folded like parchment thrown into Promethean flames. The barrier between Doom's hell and Warhammer's warp, two cancerous tumors on reality's flesh, ruptured with the force of a dying star. And through that wound, trailing the gore of 1,000 slaughtered demons and burning with rage that had endured eons, came the Doomslayer. He crashed into reality above Turium Majoris, an imperial hive world already drowning in demonic incursion. The planet's surface was a tapestry of fire and corruption. Hab blocks transformed into flesh cathedrals, factorums belching pink and crimson warp fire, and everywhere, the tide of chaos. Blood letters of Khorne carved through PDF troopers like scythes through wheat. Plague bearers shambled through refugee columns, their touch spreading Nurgle's gifts. Pink horrors cackled as they immolated guardsmen with warp flame. The Cicatrix Maledictum, the great rift that had torn the galaxy in half, pulsed overhead like an infected wound in the stars themselves. The Slayer hit the ground in the ruins of Hive Tertius's upper spires at terminal velocity. Rockcrete exploded outward in a crater 20 meters wide. Praetor suit shields flared brilliant green, absorbing impact that should have liquefied any mortal form. Dust and debris settled. Silence for exactly 3 seconds. Then he stood. The Doomslayer rose from the crater, and the demons nearest the impact site froze. They knew. Across dimensions, across the twisted non-space of the warp and Doom's hell, his legend had spread. The unchained predator, the Hell Walker, the one mortal soul that hell itself feared. Bloodletters, demons forged from pure rage, who knew no fear, hesitated. Their eyeless skulls turned toward this armored figure, and something ancient in their demonic essence recognized apocalypse. A bloodletter shrieked challenge and charged, Hellblade raised high. The Slayer's response was immediate and brutal. His gauntleted fist caught the demon's skull mid-leap, fingers crushing through warp-forged bone. He pivoted, using the demon's momentum, and tore. The bloodletter separated vertically, split from crown to groin, ichor spraying in arterial arcs. It dissolved into warp stuff, banished back to the immaterium, but not before the Slayer absorbed something. Energy, essence, the kill itself feeding him as glory kills always had. The hesitation ended. Demons poured toward him like a crimson tide. The Slayer's super shotgun barked twice. Massive shells designed for Doom's demons found warp demons equally vulnerable. Bloodletters exploded into ichor and fading screams. He moved with speed that defied his armor's bulk. Each step calculated brutality. A pink horror conjured warp flame. He caught it by its gibbering face and crushed the demons, splitting into blue horrors that he stomped into oblivion before they could fully manifest. His chainsaw roared to life, fuel somehow still functional despite dimensional transit, and carved through a plague bearer, the demon's diseased flesh offering no more resistance than the imps and hell knights he'd slaughtered for eons. 30 seconds. 30 seconds, and 24 demons lay banished or dissolving. 300 meters away, Brother Sergeant Castian of the Black Templars sword. Brethren watched through his helm's auto-senses and struggled to process what he witnessed. His squad, 5 Space Marines in midnight black power armor emblazoned with the White Templar cross, had been fighting a desperate rearguard action, buying time for guard survivors to evacuate through the Hive's lower transit tunnels. They'd killed demons by the score, but the warp breach above the Hive was vomiting forth reinforcements faster than even Adeptus Astartes could banish them. Then the sky had broken, and something had fallen like the Emperor's own wrath. "Brother Sergeant," voxed Initiate Brennus, his voice tight with controlled shock. What is that?" Castian's enhanced vision zoomed, analyzing. The figure moved through demons like a thresher through grain. Armor, unlike any pattern he recognized. Green, angular, covered in scoring and damage that spoke of battles beyond counting. No imperial iconography, no chapter markings, no purity seals or devotional scripture. The helmet was a smooth, almost inhuman visor that glowed with inner light. And the speed, even for Astartes standards, this warrior moved with supernatural quickness. "Unknown," Castian replied, watching the figure tear a bloodletter's arm off and beat another demon to dissolution with it. "But he kills the ruinous powers spawn with efficiency." "Heretical efficiency," growled Brother Thomas, the squad's veteran. "No prayer, no litany, no invocation of the Emperor's name, just slaughter." It was true. Space Marines fought with ritual and faith. Each kill a prayer, each battle a hymn to the God Emperor. This warrior fought with something else entirely. Pure, distilled violence. Rage made manifest and pointed at demons like a weapon. There was something almost demonic about it, yet the demons clearly feared him. A guttural roar echoed across the ruins, deeper, more resonant than bloodletter shrieks. A bloodthirster, greater demon of Khorne, materialized through the warp breach. 4 meters of brass-bound muscle and rage, wings spreading like a blood-red canopy, axe the size of a dreadnought's power fist, crackling with fell energies. It fixed its burning gaze on the Slayer, and for the first time since arriving, the armored figure paused. The bloodthirster bellowed in the dark tongue, words that made reality bleed. "Khorne sees you, warrior! The blood god claims your skull!" The Slayer's response was to load 2 fresh shells into his super shotgun with a mechanical ka-chunk that somehow carried across the battlefield. He didn't speak, didn't pray, didn't hesitate. He charged. "Emperor's throne," breathed Castian. Then to his squad, "Brothers, we advance. Whatever that warrior is, he fights our enemy. We will not let him face the greater demon alone." The Black Templars surged forward, bolters roaring, but even as they ran, Castian knew they would not reach the battle in time. The Slayer and the Bloodthirster collided in an explosion of violence that shattered the remaining spire structures. The demon's axe came down with force enough to split a land raider. The Slayer dodged, impossible speed rolling beneath the blow, and fired both barrels point-blank into the demon's knee. Ichor sprayed. The Bloodthirster roared and backhanded him, sending the armored figure crashing through a rockcrete wall. For 3 seconds, nothing. The Bloodthirster stalked toward the rubble, axe raised for the killing blow. Then the Slayer exploded from the debris, leaping with jump-pack-like force despite no visible thrusters, and drove his armored fist into the demon's face with the sound of a thunderhammer strike. The Bloodthirster's head snapped back, again, blows that would shatter ceramite, delivered with piston-like precision and unending fury. The greater demon staggered, and in that moment of imbalance, the Slayer's gauntlet transformed, a blade of brilliant green energy erupting from his wrist mount. The crucible, argent energy made solid, capable of killing titans. He drove it through the Bloodthirster's chest, up through where a mortal heart would be, and twisted. The greater demon screamed, not in rage, but in something approaching fear, as its essence was not banished but destroyed. The warp stuff that comprised its being unraveled, consumed by the crucible's energy, unable to reform in the immaterium. True death for a creature that should have been immortal. The Bloodthirster collapsed, dissolving into ash and fading screams. The Slayer stood over its remains, chest heaving, crucible blade dissipating. Around him, the remaining lesser demons faltered. Then, as one, they fled, scattering back toward the warp breach or dissolving into the immaterium. Demons of Khorne, who knew no retreat, ran from this warrior. Castian and his squad reached the crater where the Bloodthirster had fallen. The Slayer turned to face them, and for a moment, Space Marine and unknown warrior regarded each other across 10 meters of corpse-strewn ground. The Slayer's visor betrayed nothing, no emotion, no intent, just that eerie green glow. Castian maglocked his bolter and raised his empty hands in the Astartes gesture of parley. "Warrior," he called, his vox-amplified voice carrying easily. "I am Brother Sergeant Castian of the Black Templars, 4th Crusade Company. You fight the enemies of mankind with skill I have rarely witnessed. In the Emperor's name, I would know, are you friend or foe?" The Slayer stared, silent, unmoving. Then, slowly, he raised one gauntleted fist and extended his thumb upward in a gesture that transcended dimensions and cultures. Behind his helmet, Castian allowed himself the smallest smile. "Friend, then. The Emperor provides in mysterious ways." He lowered his hands. "The hive is lost, but there are survivors in the transit tunnels below. Thousands of Imperial citizens, guard troopers, even some Mechanicus adepts. We were attempting to hold long enough for evacuation, but the demon tide." He gestured at the warp breach still pulsing overhead. "That wound will continue spawning the ruinous power's filth until it's sealed, or this world is exterminatused." The Slayer's visor tilted upward, regarding the warp breach. Then he looked back at Castian and pointed at the rift with unmistakable intent. "You wish to assault it directly?" Castian's tone carried equal parts respect and disbelief. "Brother, that breach is the focal point of the entire demonic incursion. There will be hundreds, perhaps thousands of demons between here and whatever ritual or warp engine maintains it. Even for Astartes, it would be suicide without significant support." The Slayer's only response was to check his super shotgun's ammunition and begin walking toward the breach. Castian watched him go for 3 seconds, then voxed his squad. "Brothers, it seems we have a new objective. Follow the Green Warrior. If he's mad enough to assault a warp breach with just fury and a shotgun, we're mad enough to support him." He hefted his bolter and added, almost to himself, "Besides, I would very much like to see how this ends." If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. Rip and tear until it is done. The Black Templars fell in behind the Doomslayer, and together, this impossible alliance advanced toward the warp breach. Above them, the cicatrix maledictum pulsed like a wound in reality. Below them, in the transit tunnels, thousands of survivors huddled in darkness, praying to the God Emperor for salvation. They didn't know it yet, but salvation had arrived, silent, furious, and absolutely unstoppable. The transit tunnels beneath Hive Tertius reeked of fear, promethium, and blood. Emergency lumens flickered against walls covered in devotional graffiti. Prayers to the God Emperor, scrawled by terrified citizens in the hours before the demons came. Thousands of survivors packed the main concourse. Imperial guardsmen with laser guns held in white-knuckled grips, administratum scribes clutching data slates like holy relics, factory workers still wearing their forge smocks, children crying into their mothers' arms. All waiting for evacuation that might never come. Colonel Marcos Venn of the 47th Tertium PDF stood on a cargo platform surveying his broken command. 3,000 souls remained of the 2 million who'd lived in Hive Tertius's upper levels. 3,000 from a population that had stretched across 50 square kilometers of hab blocks and industrial zones. The rest were dead, corrupted, or worse. His vox bead crackled with scattered reports from the few remaining surface positions, all bad. The demons were consolidating, preparing for a final push into the tunnels. "Sir," Lieutenant Kara approached, her face gaunt with exhaustion. "Astropathic relay confirms no reinforcement for 6 days minimum. The nearest Imperial Navy elements are engaged at the Mordian Belt. We're on our own." Venn nodded slowly. 6 days. They had perhaps 6 hours. "Notify all units. Prepare for fighting withdrawal to sub-level 9. We'll collapse the transit shafts behind us by whatever time we can." He paused, "and send word to the ecclesiarchy priests. The people should make their peace." Kara's hand moved to the Aquila pendant at her throat. "Emperor protects, sir." "Emperor protects," Ven echoed, so though the words felt hollow. Where was the God Emperor's protection when the sky split open and demons poured through? Where was his divine intervention when bloodletters butchered entire hab blocks? Faith was a comfort, but it didn't stop hellblades or warp fire. The Vox crackled again. Brother Sergeant Castian's frequency. "Colonel Ven, this is Sword Brethren Castian. Situation update. Demonic assault temporarily disrupted. We are advancing on the warp breach with unexpected support. Recommend you hold position and prepare for possible breakthrough." Ven's eyebrows rose. The Black Templars had been fighting a hopeless rearguard for 3 hours, and now they spoke of advancing. "Sergeant Castian, clarify unexpected support. Have reinforcements arrived?" A pause. When Castian responded, his tone carried something Ven had never heard from the stoic Space Marine. Uncertainty. "Not exactly, Colonel. We have encountered a lone warrior of unknown origin. His combat effectiveness against demonic entities is extraordinary. We are accompanying him to assault the breach directly." "One warrior?" Ven couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. "Sergeant, with respect, even the Adeptus Astartes cannot—" "I know what I witnessed, Colonel." Castian's voice hardened. "This warrior killed a bloodthirster in single combat. The lesser demons fled from him. I do not know what he is, but he fights the ruinous powers with a fury I've seen only in the most blessed of the Emperor's champions. We will support his assault. Castian out." The Vox clicked to silence. Ven stared at the receiver, trying to process. A lone warrior who made demons flee. Who killed greater demons? It sounded like the fever dreams of a dying man, or the propaganda of the Munitorum. But Castian was Black Templars. Zealous, yes, but not given to fantasy. "Sir," Kara prompted. "Orders." "We hold," Ven decided. "If the Space Marines believe there's a chance, we don't abandon it. Reinforce the upper tunnel barricades. If demons come, we hold until we can't hold anymore." As Kara moved to relay orders, Ven found himself whispering a prayer, not the rote litanies of the Imperial Creed, but something more desperate. "Emperor, if you're listening, send us a miracle." 2 kilometers above, in the ruins of the Upper Hive, the Doomslayer was providing exactly that. The advance toward the warp breach had become a rolling slaughter. Demons materialized in packs, bloodletters, plague-bearers, pink horrors, and the Slayer tore through them with methodical brutality. His super shotgun boomed in steady rhythm, each shot perfectly placed. When lesser demons closed to melee range, he met them with fists, boots, and the occasional chainsaw evisceration that sent demon ichor spraying across ruined hab blocks. The Black Templars fought beside him, bolters roaring hymns of explosive death, chainswords screaming prayers of dismemberment. But even they struggled to keep pace. The Slayer didn't fight like a Space Marine. No tactical spacing, no fire and maneuver doctrine. He fought like a force of nature, charging directly into demon hordes with the confidence of someone who'd done this for eons and never lost. Brother Thomas put 3 bolt rounds into a plague-bearer's torso, watching it dissolve. "He fights without prayer," the veteran muttered over the squad vox. "Without invoking the Emperor's name. It's unnatural. Yet effective," Castian countered, watching the Slayer grab a bloodletter by its horns and physically hurl it into 3 others, bowling them over like skittles before finishing them with shotgun blasts. "Faith takes many forms, brother. Perhaps his is simply wordless." Initiate Brennus, youngest of the squad, had been watching the Slayer with something approaching awe. "Brother Sergeant, his armor. I've been analyzing it with my helm's auspex. The energy signature is unlike anything in our data cores. Not Imperial, not Xenos, not even Chaos tainted. It's clean, pure almost. And the way he moves, no powered armor should permit that level of agility. Heretic design, suggested Brother Hadrian, their squad's tech specialist. No, Brennus replied slowly. Heretic work is corrupted, twisted. This is different. Advanced, but not corrupted. As if someone built powered armor without any knowledge of the Omnissiah's templates and somehow made it better. Castian filed that information away. When this was over, if they survived, the Mechanicus would want to know about this warrior. So would the Inquisition. That thought troubled him. The Ordo Malleus didn't look kindly on unexplained demon slayers who appeared from nowhere. But that was a problem for later. Right now, they had demons to kill. The Slayer suddenly halted, raising one fist in a gesture that somehow clearly meant stop. The Black Templars froze, weapons ready. Ahead, the ruins opened into what had been Tertius's main cathedral square, a vast plaza dominated by a towering statue of the God Emperor, now defaced and bleeding from demon corruption. And in the center of the square, standing before the warp breach that pulsed like an infected wound in reality, stood something that made even the Slayer pause. A Chaos Space Marine. Not just any traitor, but a Khorne Berserker, World Eater Legion by the brass trim and blood-red ceramite. The traitor's armor was covered in skulls, chains, and cornety runes that hurt to look at. He stood nearly as tall as the Slayer, power armor bulked with millennia of warp mutation. In his hands, a chain axe the size of a man, teeth spinning with eager hunger, and a bolt pistol covered in blasphemous scripture. Behind the Berserker, 24 bloodletters formed a semicircle, waiting, watching. The Chaos Space Marines' Vox grill crackled with a voice like grinding metal. So, the anomaly. The warrior who killed Kavoth, the bloodthirster. The traitor's helmet tilted, studying the Slayer. Khorne has felt you, mortal. Your rage, your endless slaughter. The blood god is intrigued. The Slayer's response was to chamber a round in his super shotgun. The Berserker laughed, a wet, corrupt sound. No words? Good. Words are weakness. Only blood speaks truth. He raised his chain axe in salute. I am Karnak the Red, World Eater, servant of the Blood God for 10,000 years. I have killed Space Marines, Guardsmen, Xenos, and demons beyond counting. My skull tally would reach the ceiling of this pathetic cathedral. He pointed the axe at the Slayer. But you are different. Khorne whispers your name in the warp. Says you have killed demons across dimensions. Says your rage is pure, untainted, perfect. The Slayer took one step forward. The Blood God offers you a choice, warrior, Karnak continued. Join him. Become his champion. Your rage could fuel slaughters that would make galaxies bleed. Khorne would give you strength beyond imagining, battles eternal, and the skulls of every enemy you've ever dreamed of killing. The Berserker's voice dropped to something almost reverent. Or refuse, and I will take your skull for his throne myself. Choose. For a long moment, silence. The warp breach pulsed. The bloodletters shifted. Hellblades ready. The Black Templars, 50 meters back, watched with weapons trained but held fire. This was the Slayer's confrontation. Then the Doomslayer did something unexpected. He reached up to his helmet and pressed something at the base of his skull. With a hiss of pressure seals, the helmet retracted, folding back into his armor's collar. For the first time, his face was visible. Castian's enhanced vision captured every detail. A human face, scarred beyond measure, eyes that burned with an intensity that made even Astartes uncomfortable. Not rage, exactly. Rage was too simple a word. This was purpose. Determination so absolute it had transcended mortality and become something approaching divinity. This was a man who had fought hell itself for eons and never, not once, considered surrender. The Slayer looked directly at Karnak, and when he spoke, his voice was rough from millennia of disuse. But the words were clear. No. One word. One syllable. Absolute refusal. Karnak stared for 3 seconds. Then he threw back his head and howled, a sound of pure, joyous rage. "Blood for the blood god!" the berserker charged, chain axe roaring. The Slayer's helmet snapped back into place, and he met the charge head-on. They collided in an explosion of violence that cracked the plaza's rockcrete. Chain axe met super shotgun. The Slayer had used the weapon as a club, blocking the axe's descending arc with the shotgun's reinforced barrel. Sparks flew. The Slayer twisted, fired both barrels point-blank into Karnak's chest. The Chaos Marine staggered. Ceramite cracked, but not breached. 10,000 years of warp enhancement had made his armor unnaturally resilient. Karnak backhanded the Slayer, sending him sliding across the plaza. "Yes, fight! Bleed! Kill!" The berserker fired his bolt pistol, mass-reactive rounds exploding against the Slayer's shields. The green energy flickered, but held. The Slayer rolled, came up running, and launched himself at Karnak with jump-pack impossible speed. They grappled, two warriors of superhuman strength locked in brutal close combat. The Slayer drove his knee into Karnak's gut, followed with an elbow to the helmet that cracked the ceramite. Karnak responded with a headbutt that would have killed an unaugmented human, then brought his chain axe around in a horizontal slash. The Slayer ducked under it, barely, and his gauntlet blazed with green energy. The crucible blade erupted, and he drove it toward Karnak's chest. The Chaos Marine twisted desperately, the blade scoring across his pauldron instead of piercing his heart. Ceramite melted like wax. Karnak roared and smashed his chain axe into the Slayer's side. Shields flared, absorbed most of the impact, but the Slayer was thrown back, crashing through the base of the Emperor's statue. "Brother Sergeant," Thomas growled, "we should intervene." "No," Castian replied, though his hand tightened on his bolter. "This is his battle. We would only dishonor it." The Slayer emerged from the rubble, and for the first time, the Black Templars saw him angry. Not the cold, methodical fury he displayed before. This was something hotter, more primal. He discarded his empty super shotgun and drew a weapon from his back, a massive double-barreled cannon that hummed with building energy. Green light gathered at its twin muzzles, growing brighter, more intense. Karnak's eyes widened behind his cracked helm. "Is that..." The BFG 9000 fired. A sphere of emerald plasma erupted from the weapon, crossing the plaza in a heartbeat. It struck Karnak's center mass, and for a moment, the Chaos Marine was silhouetted in green fire. Then the secondary effect triggered. Arcs of plasma energy lashed out from the sphere, seeking every demon and chaos-tainted entity in range. The bloodletters shrieked as they were engulfed, their warp-stuffed bodies unable to withstand the weapon's reality-anchoring energy. They dissolved, banished instantly. Karnak screamed, not in rage, but in pain. The BFG's energy was burning him from the inside out, cooking the demonic corruption that had sustained him for 10 millennia. His armor cracked, split, fell away in pieces. The flesh beneath was charred, ruined. The berserker dropped to his knees, chain axe falling from nerveless fingers. He looked up at the Slayer, and in his dying moments, something almost like clarity entered his voice. What are you?" The Slayer walked forward, picked up his super shotgun, and reloaded it with methodical precision. He pressed the barrel against Karnak's forehead. "Doom," he said simply. The shotgun boomed. Karnak's head exploded in a spray of ceramite and corrupted flesh. The Chaos Marine's body collapsed, and this time it didn't rise. The warp stuff sustaining him had been burned away. He was truly dead. The Slayer stood over the corpse for a moment, then turned toward the warp breach. It pulsed, still vomiting demons into reality. He checked his BFG's charge, nearly depleted, and holstered it. This would require a more direct approach. Castian and his squad approached cautiously. "Warrior," the brother sergeant called. "That weapon, I've never seen its like, and you refused Khorne's offer without hesitation." He paused. "Most mortals who hear the blood gods whisper are corrupted or driven mad. You simply said no. How?" The Slayer looked at Castian, and though his helmet hid his expression, something in his posture suggested grim amusement. He tapped the side of his helmet, then pointed at the warp breach, then made a throat-cutting gesture. The meaning was clear. "Talk later. Kill demons now." Despite himself, Castian smiled behind his helm. "A warrior after our own hearts. Very well. Lead on, and we will follow. For the Emperor." The Slayer paused, seemed to consider, then gave a small nod. Acknowledgement, if not agreement. Then he turned and began walking toward the warp breach, reloading weapons as he went. The Black Templars fell in behind him, and together this strange alliance advanced into the heart of the demonic incursion. Above them, the warp breach pulsed like a malevolent eye. Below them, in the tunnels, thousands of survivors waited in darkness. Salvation was coming. Silent, furious, and absolutely unstoppable. The warp breach dominated the skyline like a festering wound in reality itself. Up close, it was worse. A tear in the fabric of space where the immaterium bled through into the material universe. Tendrils of impossible color writhed at its edges. Colors that had no name in human language. Hues that made the eyes water and the mind recoil. Through the breach, glimpses of the warp's nightmare landscape, endless oceans of screaming faces, mountains of skulls, rivers of blood that flowed upward, and pouring through in a constant stream. Demons. The Slayer stood at the edge of what had been Hive Tertius's primary generatorium complex, now transformed into a chaos stronghold. Bloodletters patrolled in packs of 20. Plague bearers shambled between corrupted machinery, spreading Nurgle's rot. Pink and blue horrors cackled as they defaced Imperial iconography with warp fire. And overseeing it all, standing before a makeshift altar constructed from melted weapons and screaming faces frozen in brass, a demon prince. Brother Sergeant Castian's auspex pinged softly as it analyzed the target. "Throne," he breathed. "That's no lesser demon. Demon Prince, definitely Khorne. 4 meters tall, warp-enhanced strength and durability, likely able to manifest psychic phenomena despite Khorne's hatred of sorcery." He looked at the Slayer. "Warrior, that creature is death incarnate. Even for Astartes, demon princes require coordinated fire from multiple squads or heavy weapons support. We should fall back. Request." The Slayer was already moving. He didn't run. He launched, activating something in his Praetor suit that propelled him forward with impossible speed. Equipment launcher on his left gauntlet fired, and a sphere of ice-blue energy arced through the air, detonating among a pack of bloodletters. They froze solid instantly, some kind of cryo-technology that shouldn't exist. The Slayer crashed through them like a wrecking ball, frozen demon shards exploding in his wake. "Emperor's blood," Castian roared. "All units, advance. Support the Green Warrior for the Emperor and Dawn." The Black Templars charged, bolters thundering. Bloodletters turned to face this new threat. Hellblades raised. Brother Thomas's chainsword met a demon's blade in a shower of sparks. The veteran's millennia of experience, reading the demon's movements and countering with brutal efficiency. Initiate, Brennus put a bolt round through a pink horror's center mass, the demon splitting into 2 blue horrors that he dispatched with precise double-tap shots. Brother Hadrian's plasma pistol superheated the air, turning a plague bear into expanding vapor. But the Slayer was a storm given form. He'd switched to a weapon the Black Templars hadn't seen yet, a massive rotary cannon that spun up with a whine like a turbofan engine. When it fired, the sound was apocalyptic, hundreds of rounds per second, each one finding demon flesh. The heavy assault cannon, designed to shred through demon hordes in Doom's hell, found warped demons equally vulnerable. Bloodletters dissolved under the withering fire. Plague bearers, normally resilient to conventional damage, were torn apart by the sheer volume of fire. Pink horrors exploded into clouds of warp stuff before they could split. The demon prince noticed. It turned from its altar, wings spreading wide, and roared, a sound that was part lion, part dragon, part damned soul scream. The roar was psychic as well as physical, a wave of pure Cornete rage that washed over the battlefield. Lesser men would have been driven mad or had their hearts stopped from fear. The Black Templars staggered but held, their faith and conditioning protecting them. The Slayer didn't even flinch. He just kept firing. The demon prince launched itself into the air, wings beating once, twice, and then it was diving like a raptor toward the Slayer. Its claws, each the size of power swords, extended, wreathed in warp fire. It moved with speed that defied its bulk, crossing 100 meters in seconds. The Slayer's response was to holster his heavy assault cannon mid-dive and draw his super shotgun. He waited 1 second, 2 seconds, 3, until the demon prince was practically on top of him. Then he fired both barrels directly into the creature's face. At point-blank range, even a demon prince felt that. Its head snapped back, momentum arrested. It crashed into the ground where the Slayer had been standing, but he'd already rolled aside. Before the demon could recover, the Slayer was on its back, one arm wrapped around its throat, the other driving his armored fist repeatedly into the base of its skull. Each blow hit with pile driver force, cracking the demon's warp-hardened bone. The demon prince howled and thrashed, trying to dislodge this impudent mortal. It rolled, crushing corrupted machinery beneath its bulk, but the Slayer held on with grip strength that shouldn't be possible. His Praetor suit's servo motors whined at maximum capacity, augmenting already superhuman strength. The demon slammed backward into a generatorium wall, and the Slayer was crushed between demon flesh and rockcrete. His shields flared, flickered, failed. For the first time since arriving, the Slayer took real damage. Warning runes flashed across his HUD. Armor integrity at 87%. Shield recharge in 15 seconds. The demon prince sensed weakness and pressed its advantage, spinning and catching the Slayer with a backhand that sent him flying across the complex. He crashed through a corrupted cogitator bank, sparks and debris flying. "Concentrate fire," Castian commanded. "Bring it down." 5 bolters spoke as one, mass-reactive rounds stitching across the demon prince's torso and wings. The creature roared and turned toward the Black Templars, momentarily distracted from the Slayer. It raised one clawed hand, and warp fire gathered. Not sorcery, exactly, but raw Cornete rage given physical form. The fire, lashed out like a whip, catching Brother Hadrian across the chest. His power armor held, but he was thrown back, crashing into Thomas. The demon prince advanced on the squad, murder in its burning eyes. "Mortals," it bellowed in a voice like grinding stone. "You dare strike at Khorne's chosen? I will wear your skulls as—" The chainsaw screamed. The Slayer had emerged from the wreckage, and he'd activated his chainsaw. Fuel somehow still functional, teeth spinning at maximum RPM. He didn't hesitate, didn't pause for dramatic effect. He just drove the chainsaw directly into the demon prince's back, between its wings, and pushed. The demon's words cut off in a shriek of agony. Chainsaw teeth designed to carve through Hell Knights and Barons met warp-enhanced demon flesh and won. The Slayer leaned into it, using his full weight and strength, and the chainsaw bit deeper, deeper, until it punched through the demon's chest cavity and erupted from its sternum in a spray of ichor and warp stuff. The demon prince staggered, clawing at the chainsaw, but the slayer was already moving. He released the weapon, left it embedded in the demon's torso, still running, and circled around to face the creature. His gauntlet blazed with green energy, and the crucible blade erupted, longer than before, burning with argent fire. "No!" the demon prince gasped, genuine fear entering its voice for the first time. "That blade, it can truly kill. How do you—" The slayer drove the crucible through the demon's skull, from jaw to crown, and twisted. The demon prince's scream was cut short as the argent energy consumed its essence, not banishing it to the warp, but destroying it. True death. Final death. The kind of death that even immortal demons feared. The massive body collapsed, already beginning to dissolve. The slayer retrieved his chainsaw, gave it an experimental rev, still functional, and holstered it. Around him, the remaining lesser demons were fleeing, scattering back toward the warp breach or dissolving into the immaterium. They'd watched their master die a true death, and primal survival instinct overrode even demonic nature. Castian approached cautiously, his squad forming up behind him. Brother Hadrian was back on his feet, armor scorched but functional. "Warrior," the brother sergeant said carefully, "that blade of yours, it doesn't just banish demons, it kills them permanently. Even the Ordo Malleus's most sacred weapons can only banish demons back to the warp. But you're ending them completely." The slayer nodded once, confirming. "How?" Castian couldn't keep the wonder from his voice. "What technology, what blessing, what power allows for true demon death?" The slayer pointed at the warp breach, then at himself, then made a cutting gesture. The meaning was clear enough. "I've been killing demons permanently for a very long time." Before Castian could press further, his vox crackled with a new voice, cultured, augmented with mechanical precision, and carrying an authority that made even Space Marines pay attention. "Brother Sergeant Castian, this is Magos Explorator Theta 77 of the Adeptus Mechanicus. I've been monitoring your Vox traffic from the evacuation site. This warrior you describe, his technology, I must examine it. The Omnissiah demands understanding." Castian's jaw tightened behind his helm. The Mechanicus. Of course they'd been listening. "Magos, the warrior is currently engaged in purging the demonic incursion. Your requests can wait until—" "Negative, Brother Sergeant." The Magos's voice took on a harder edge. "Unknown technology of this sophistication represents potential heresy, or, conversely, a gift from the machine god himself. I am dispatching a team of Skitari to secure the warrior for immediate analysis. Do not interfere." The Vox clicked off before Castian could respond. He cursed under his breath, a brief lapse in his usual piety. The Adeptus Mechanicus had authority second only to the Inquisition when it came to technology, and they were notoriously zealous about securing anything they didn't understand, which meant they'd try to take the Slayer by force if necessary. "Trouble?" Brother Thomas asked, reading his sergeant's body language. "The Mechanicus wants our ally for study," Castian replied grimly. "They're sending Skitari." Thomas grunted. "The warrior won't go quietly. We've seen what he does to things that get in his way." "I know." Castian looked at the Slayer, who was checking his weapons and preparing to advance on the warp breach. "But we can't allow infighting. Not with demons still pouring through that breach." He made a decision. "We stay with him. If the Skitari arrive, we mediate. The warrior has proven himself against the ruinous powers. That earns him the benefit of doubt, at least until this world is secure." Initiate Brennus spoke up hesitantly. "Brother Sergeant, the Mechanicus won't accept that. They'll report us to Chapter Command for interfering with their operations." "Let them," Castian replied. "The Black Templars answer to the Emperor, not the cult Mechanicus. Our duty is to purge the demon, and this warrior is the most effective demon slayer I've witnessed in 2 centuries of service. We will not abandon him to Mechanicus zealotry." He turned to his squad. "Are we in accord?" 4 helmets nodded in unison. Whatever came, the Sword Brethren would face it together. The Slayer, oblivious to or unconcerned with the political maneuvering, had reached the base of the warp breach. Up close, it was even more horrific, a wound in space 20 meters across, edges crackling with warp lightning, the screaming void of the immaterium visible beyond. Demons were still emerging, though fewer now. The death of the demon prince had disrupted whatever ritual was maintaining the breach's stability. The Slayer studied the breach for a long moment, his helmet's sensors analyzing. Then he reached into a compartment on his armor and withdrew something that made Castian's breath catch. A grenade, but unlike any Imperial frag or crack grenade. This one pulsed with the same green energy as his shield's and crucible blade. Argent energy, concentrated and weaponized. "Warrior!" Castian called out. "What are you—" The Slayer primed the grenade and threw it directly into the warp breach. For 3 seconds, nothing. Then the breach convulsed. The green energy of the grenade was spreading through the warp tear like an infection, argent energy meeting warp stuff and rejecting it on a fundamental level. The breach began to collapse, its edges contracting, the flow of demons cutting off abruptly. Demons, still on the material side, shrieked as they felt their connection to the warp severing. But the collapse wasn't complete. The breach was closing, but not fast enough. Something on the other side was fighting to keep it open. Through the shrinking tear, Castian glimpsed movement. Massive, armored, wreathed in warp fire. Another demon prince? A greater demon? Something worse? The Slayer saw it too. Without hesitation, he stepped toward the breach. "Warrior, no!" Castian lunged forward, but he was too slow. The Slayer walked directly into the collapsing warp breach, crossing from the material universe into the immaterium itself. The last thing Castian saw was the green glow of his armor disappearing into that screaming void. Then the breach collapsed completely, sealing with a sound like reality sighing in relief. Silence fell over the generatorium complex. The remaining demons, cut off from the warp, began to dissolve. True dissolution, their essence unable to maintain cohesion without the breach's support. The Black Templars stood in stunned silence. Brother Thomas was the first to speak. Did he just walk into the warp, voluntarily? "Without a Geller field," Hadrian added, his voice hollow. "Without any protection, that's suicide. Nothing mortal survives the warp unshielded. The madness alone would—" "He's not dead," Castian interrupted, surprising himself with his certainty. "I don't know how I know, but he's not dead. He went in there for a reason, to finish whatever was keeping the breach open." "Brother Sergeant," Brennus said quietly. "Even if he survived entry, the warp is infinite. How would he return?" Castian had no answer. He stared at the space where the breach had been, now just empty air above scarred rockcrete. The warrior had appeared from nowhere, slaughtered demons with impossible efficiency, refused Khorne's temptation, killed a demon prince with a chainsaw, and then walked into literal hell without hesitation. "We wait," Castian decided. "For 1 hour, we hold this position. If he returns, we're here. If he doesn't—" He trailed off, unwilling to complete the thought. His vox crackled. "Brother Sergeant Castian, this is Colonel Vienne. We're detecting massive reduction in demonic activity across all sectors. Whatever you did up there, it's working. The demons are dissolving, falling back. We might actually survive this." "The warrior did it, Colonel," Castian replied. "He sealed the warp breach, but—" He paused. "He entered the breach before it closed. He's in the warp now." Silence on the vox. Then, "Emperor preserve him. No one deserves that fate, not even for saving a world." Castian looked at his squad, then at the empty air where a warrior from another dimension had disappeared into hell itself. "He's survived worse," he said, with more confidence than he felt. I think hell should be more afraid of him than he is of hell." In the tunnels below, thousands of survivors began to emerge, blinking in the dim light, hardly daring to believe the nightmare was ending. On the Generatorium complex, 5 Black Templars stood vigil, waiting for a miracle. And in the warp, in that screaming infinity of madness and horror, the Doomslayer walked with purpose, crucible blade ignited, ready to kill whatever demon had tried to keep the breach open. He'd been in hell before. This was just a different flavor of it. The warp was madness in given form. Not metaphorical madness, literal, physical insanity made manifest in a dimension where thought and reality were one. The Slayer stepped through the collapsing breach and into a realm where up was down, where time flowed backward and sideways simultaneously, where the screaming of 1 trillion damned souls formed the background music to an endless nightmare. Any mortal human would have been driven insane in microseconds. Psychers, those cursed with warp sensitivity, would have had their minds shredded like tissue paper in a hurricane. Even Space Marines, with their conditioning and faith, required Geller fields and extensive psychic shielding to survive warp transit. The Immaterium was anathema to life, sanity, and order. The Doomslayer looked around, assessed his environment, and began walking. His Praetor suit's systems screamed warnings, radiation levels incompatible with known physics, energy signatures that defied analysis, spatial dimensions that didn't match Euclidean geometry. The HUD flickered, struggled to process input that shouldn't exist, then adapted. Because the suit had been designed by the makers and enhanced with Argent energy, technology that had battled Hell's dimensions for eons. The warp was different from Doom's Hell, more psychic, less physical, but the fundamental principle remained. This was a demon realm, and he'd walked through demon realms before. The landscape around him shifted constantly. One moment, he stood on an endless plain of skulls that crunched beneath his boots. The next, he was wading through rivers of blood that flowed upward into a sky made of screaming faces. Mountains of brass and bone rose and fell like waves. Fortresses constructed from still living flesh pulsed with obscene life. And everywhere, the demons. Blood letters materialized in packs, drawn to his presence like sharks to blood. They charged with hell blades raised, roaring in the dark tongue. The Slayer met them with his super shotgun, each blast sending demons dissolving back into raw warp stuff. But here, in their home dimension, they reformed almost instantly, pulled back together by the warp's malevolent will and the endless rage of Khorne. The Slayer adapted. If they reformed, he'd just kill them again, and again, and again, for as long as necessary. He pushed forward, following an instinct honed by eons of demon hunting. Something had been keeping that breach open, anchoring it to the material universe. Something powerful enough to maintain a stable warp tear despite his Argent grenade. That something was here, deeper in the warp, and he was going to kill it. A pink horror leaped at him from a tower made of impossible angles. He caught it mid-air, crushed its gibbering face, and hurled the dissolving corpse into 3 more horrors. His chainsaw roared to life, carving through a pack of plague bearers that shambled from a wound in reality. Their diseased flesh offered no more resistance than the demons of Doom's Hell. Meat was meat, and chainsaws cared nothing for warp enhancement. But the warp itself was fighting him now. The landscape shifted, trying to disorient him, to trap him in recursive loops or maze-like impossibilities. Gravity reversed, and he found himself walking on what had been the sky. Time stuttered, and he experienced the same 10 seconds 3 times in different orders. Psychic pressure built against his mind, whispers promising power, glory, endless battle, anything he desired if he would just submit. The Slayer's response was to load fresh shells into his super shotgun and keep walking. Khorne's realm in the warp was a fortress dimension, an endless battlefield where the Blood God's legions waged eternal war. brass towers rose like mountains, their walls inscribed with the names of every warrior who'd ever killed in Khorne's name. Rivers of blood carved canyons through plains of skulls, and at the heart of it all, barely visible through the shifting madness, stood a structure that dwarfed everything else. The brass citadel, Khorne's throne room, where the blood god himself sat upon a throne built from the skulls of every mortal and immortal being ever slain in his name. The Slayer wasn't heading for the citadel. Even he recognized that as suicide. But between him and his objective, an army of demons materialized. Hundreds of bloodletters, dozens of blood crushers mounted on juggernauts, flesh hounds baying with hunger, and at their head, a bloodthirster. Not just any bloodthirster. This one was ancient, massive, its brass armor inscribed with 10,000 years of kill tallies. It carried an axe that radiated power, a weapon that had tasted the blood of Space Marine chapter masters, Eldar farseers, Orc war bosses, and countless others. Its wings spread wide, casting shadows across the skull plane, and when it spoke, the warp itself trembled. Doomslayer! The bloodthirster's voice was recognition and challenge combined. Khorne has spoken your name. The blood god knows you, knows your rage, knows your endless slaughter. The Slayer said nothing. He simply began loading his BFG 9000, the weapon's energy cells drawing power from his suit's Argent reactor. You cannot win here, mortal. This is Khorne's realm. His power is absolute, his rage infinite. You are one, we are legion. The bloodthirster raised its axe, and the demon army behind it roared as one. Surrender, serve, or die forever. The Slayer finished loading the BFG, aimed it directly at the bloodthirster, and fired. The emerald plasma sphere crossed the distance in a heartbeat, struck the greater demon center mass, and detonated. Arcs of argent energy lashed out in all directions, seeking every demon in range. Bloodletters by the dozen dissolved, their warp stuff unable to withstand the reality-anchoring properties of argent energy. Blood crushers and their juggernaut mounts exploded into ichor. Flesh hounds simply ceased to exist. The bloodthirster survived. Barely. Its brass armor was cracked, melted, its wings shredded. It staggered, roaring in pain and fury, but it survived because greater demons were not so easily destroyed, even by weapons that could kill titans. The Slayer holstered the BFG and drew his crucible blade. The argent weapon blazed with green fire, and in the warp's madness, it stood out like a beacon of sanity, ordered, pure, anathema to chaos. He charged. The bloodthirster met his charge, axe swinging with force that could split mountains. Crucible met demon-forged brass in an explosion of sparks and warp fire. The weapons locked, and for a moment, mortal and demon strained against each other. The Slayer's divine enhancement and Praetor suit augmentation versus 10,000 years of Khornate power. The Slayer won. He twisted the crucible, deflecting the axe, and drove his armored fist into the bloodthirster's jaw. The greater demon's head snapped back. The Slayer pressed his advantage, crucible blade carving a molten line across the demon's chest. The bloodthirster roared and backhanded him, sending him sliding across the skull plane, but the Slayer rolled with the impact and came up firing his heavy assault cannon. Hundreds of rounds per second hammered into the greater demon, each one chipping away at its warp-enhanced durability. The bloodthirster charged through the fire, ignoring wounds that would have killed lesser demons, and brought its axe down in a vertical slash that would have split the Slayer in half. He dodged, barely, and the axe carved a trench in the ground where he'd stood. Before the bloodthirster could recover, the Slayer leapt onto its back, wrapped one arm around its throat, and drove the crucible blade through the base of its skull. The argent energy burned, consumed, destroyed. The bloodthirster's roar became a gurgle, then silence. Its massive body collapsed, and this time it didn't reform. True death, even in the warp. The remaining demons hesitated. Their master was dead, truly dead, not banished, but ended. And the mortal warrior still stood, weapons ready, utterly unafraid. Then, from the direction of the brass citadel, a presence made itself known. Not a daemon, not even a greater demon. Something infinitely more powerful. The Slayer felt it like pressure against his mind. Vast, ancient, hungry. The attention of Khorne himself, the blood god, one of the 4 chaos gods who had plagued the galaxy for millions of years. "You interest me, mortal." The voice wasn't sound. It was pure psychic force, bypassing ears entirely and resonating directly in the mind. Any normal human would have been obliterated instantly. The Slayer felt it, acknowledged it, and kept walking toward his objective. "You refuse my gifts. You reject my champions. You kill my demons with a purity of rage I have not witnessed in eons." A pause. And when Khorne's presence spoke again, there was something approaching. "Respect. You are wasted. On your own dimension, you could be my greatest champion, lead my legends, drown galaxies in blood." The Slayer stopped walking. For a moment, he stood perfectly still on that plain of skulls, surrounded by dissolving demon corpses, while a literal god of chaos made him an offer. Then he looked up towards where he sensed the brass citadel and raised his middle finger. The psychic pressure that followed was like being at ground zero of a nuclear detonation. Khorne's rage, not anger, not fury, but the distilled essence of every violent impulse in the galaxy, crashed down on the Slayer like a tidal wave. The skull plane cracked, the blood rivers boiled, lesser demons within a kilometer simply exploded from the force of their god's wrath. The Slayer staggered, dropped to one knee, his Praetor suit's shields flaring to maximum as they struggled to protect him from divine rage. Warning runes flooded his HUD, armor integrity dropping, shield capacity at 23%, 18%, 12%, but he didn't break, didn't surrender, didn't die. Because the Slayer had something Khorne didn't understand. Rage that wasn't chaos. His fury was pure, directed, controlled. It didn't feed Khorne because it wasn't about destruction for destruction's sake. It was about protection. Every demon he killed, every hell dimension he purged, was to protect humanity, to avenge those who'd been taken. His rage was righteous, and righteousness was anathema to chaos. The pressure lessened, not because Khorne relented, but because even a chaos god's attention couldn't remain focused indefinitely. The blood god's interest moved elsewhere, to other battles, other champions, other slaughters across the galaxy. The Slayer was dismissed as an interesting anomaly, nothing more. The Slayer stood, checked his weapons, and resumed walking. Ahead, through the shifting madness of the warp, he finally saw his objective, a structure that didn't belong. It was technological rather than daemonic, a massive device constructed from brass and bone and still screaming souls, but with elements that were clearly material universe in origin. Cables and conduits ran through organic tissue. Cogitator banks pulsed with warp fire. And at its center, a portal generator, the anchor that had been keeping the Tertia Majoris breach open. Guarding it were the last obstacles. 3 Chaos Space Marines, their armor bearing the marks of the Word-Bearer's Legion, and a Dark Apostle, a Chaos Priest who wielded both bolter and sorcery. The Dark Apostle saw him approaching and laughed. So the anomaly survived Khorne's attention. Impressive, but futile. This anchor will remain until our ritual is complete, and then the Slayer shot him. The super shotgun boomed, both barrels at maximum range. The Dark Apostle's refractor field absorbed most of the damage, but the sheer force staggered him. The 3 Word-Bearers opened fire with bolters, mass reactive rounds exploding against the Slayer's shields. He rolled behind a pillar of skulls, returned fire with his heavy assault cannon, and began advancing. The battle in the warp was brutal and efficient. The Slayer had learned from his fight with Karnak. Chaos Space Marines were tough, but not invincible. He used the terrain, such as it was, drawing fire while closing distance. One word-bearer charged with a chain axe. The Slayer met him with his own chainsaw, the two weapons screaming against each other before the Slayer's superior strength won out, and he carved through the traitor's armor. The second word-bearer tried to flank, but the Slayer's equipment launcher fired a frag grenade that detonated at the traitor's feet, staggering him long enough for a crucible thrust through his chest. The third word-bearer actually managed to wound him. A bolt round penetrated his weakened shields and cracked his shoulder pauldron, but the Slayer powered through the pain, closed distance, and executed a glory kill that would have made even Cornetate demons pause. He tore the word-bearer's helmet off and crushed his skull with his bare hands. The Dark Apostle, seeing his bodyguards dead, began chanting in the dark tongue, summoning warp fire. The flames gathered, coalesced, formed into a spear of pure chaos energy that he hurled at the Slayer. It struck dead center, and for a moment, the Slayer was engulfed in warp fire. Then he walked out of the flames, armor scorched but functional, and shot the Dark Apostle again, and again, and again, until the traitor's refractor field failed and buckshot tore through corrupted ceramite and flesh beneath. The Dark Apostle collapsed, his last words a curse in the dark tongue that the Slayer neither understood nor cared about. The anchor device stood unguarded. The Slayer approached it, studied its construction for exactly 5 seconds, then planted his last argent grenade at its base. He set the timer for 30 seconds and began walking back toward where he'd entered the warp. Behind him, the grenade detonated. The anchor device exploded in a cascade of argent energy and warp fire, its destruction sending shockwaves through Khorne's realm. The connection to Tertium Majoris was severed completely. No more demons would pour through. The incursion was over, but now the Slayer faced a problem. He was in the warp, the breach was sealed, and he had no obvious way back to the material universe. He stood on that plain of skulls, surrounded by the dissolving corpses of demons and traitors, and considered his options. The warp was infinite, and he was one mortal, albeit an extremely dangerous one. Finding a way out could take a while. Then he felt it, a pull, faint but distinct. Something in the material universe was calling to him, not summoning exactly, but reaching out, a beacon in the madness. He turned toward it, oriented himself, and began walking. The warp tried to stop him. Demons materialized, but he killed them. The landscape shifted, but he adapted. Time became meaningless. He might have been walking for minutes or millennia, but he kept moving, following that beacon. And then, impossibly, he saw it. A tear in the warp, a wound opening from the other side. Not a chaos breach, but something else. Something pulling him back to reality. He didn't question it. He just ran, charged through the tear, and the Doomslayer crashed back into reality with the force of a meteor strike. He materialized 3 meters above the Generatorium complex's rock-crete floor, gravity reasserting itself with prejudice. He hit hard, armor clanging against stone, rolled with the impact, and came up in a combat crouch, weapons ready. For 3 seconds, he scanned for threats, demons, Chaos Marines, anything that needed killing. Instead, he found 5 Black Templars Space Marines staring at him in shocked silence. Emperor's throne. Brother Thomas was the first to break the silence. He's back. He actually came back from the warp. Brother Sergeant Castian stepped forward, bolter lowered in a gesture of peace. Warrior, you've been gone for 17 minutes. We didn't think anyone could survive unshielded warp exposure for 17 seconds, let alone minutes. He paused, studying the Slayer's armor. Scorched, damaged, covered in ichor that was already evaporating into nothing. What did you find in there? The Slayer stood, holstered his super shotgun, and made a throat-cutting gesture, followed by pointing at where the warp breach had been. Then he gave a thumbs up. Mission accomplished. Breach anchor destroyed. The anchor is destroyed? Castian's voice carried relief and wonder in equal measure. Then it's truly over. The incursion is finished. He placed his fist over his chest in salute. You have saved this world, warrior. Millions of lives preserved because of your actions. The Emperor... He was interrupted by the sound of synchronized marching. From 3 directions, squads of Skitarii emerged from the ruins. 30 augmented soldiers of the Adeptus Mechanicus, their bodies more machine than flesh, armed with galvanic rifles and radium carbines. They moved with mechanical precision, forming a perimeter around the Slayer and the Black Templars. Behind them walked Magos Explorator Theta 77, a figure that was perhaps 15% biological and 85% machine. Multiple mechadendrites writhed from his back, each tipped with different tools, plasma cutters, data probes, scanning equipment. His eyes had been replaced with multi-spectrum optical sensors that clicked and whirred as they focused on the Slayer. When he spoke, his voice was synthesized, emotionless. Unidentified entity. You will submit to immediate examination and technology assessment. The Omnissiah demands understanding of your equipment's construction and function. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. The Slayer looked at the Magos, then at the 30 Skitarii with weapons trained on him, then back at the Magos. His hand moved to his super shotgun. Castian quickly stepped between them. Magos Theta. 7-7, this warrior has just returned from the warp itself after destroying the breach anchor. He has saved this world. Surely examination can wait until... Negative, Brother Sergeant. The Magos' mechadendrites twitched with what might have been impatience. Unknown technology of this sophistication represents either heretical innovation or lost STC patterns. Both scenarios require immediate investigation. The entity will comply, or my Skitarii will enforce compliance. His optical sensors focused on the Slayer. Your armor, weapons, and energy systems violate 17 protocols of the Cult Mechanicus. You will surrender them for analysis. The Slayer's response was to chamber around in his super shotgun with a deliberate K-chunk that echoed across the complex. Magos, Castian said carefully, I would strongly advise against attempting to take this warrior's equipment by force. I have witnessed his combat capabilities. Your Skitarii will not survive the attempt. Threat assessment acknowledged and dismissed, the Magos replied. Skitarii combat protocols are sufficient for one unaugmented human, regardless of equipment quality. He raised one mechadendrite, and the Skitarii's weapons hummed as they charged. Final warning, submit for examination or... The Slayer moved. He didn't shoot, not yet. Instead, he activated something on his gauntlet, and a holographic display projected into the air between him and the Magos. It showed a 3-dimensional schematic of his Praetor suit, rotating slowly, with technical specifications scrolling in a language that wasn't Gothic, wasn't any human language, but was clearly technological in nature. The Magos froze. His optical sensors zoomed, refocused, zoomed again. His mechadendrites stopped moving. For 5 full seconds, the most animated part of the Mechanicus had ever been was completely still. Then, impossible. That energy matrix, those material compositions, the computational architecture. His voice, usually so controlled, actually trembled. That is not human technology, not Xenos, not even Necron or Aeldari. What is this? The Slayer pointed at himself, then at the hologram, then made a gesture that somehow conveyed, mine, not yours, don't touch. The Omnissiah, the Magos breathed, and for the first time, there was genuine reverence in his synthesized voice. This is technology from beyond our understanding. Beyond our galaxy, perhaps. A gift from the machine god himself, or... He trailed off, mechadendrites twitching in what might have been religious ecstasy or existential crisis. Castian seized the moment. Magos, the warrior has demonstrated his willingness to share information, but not to surrender his equipment. Given that he has just saved this world and clearly poses no threat to the Imperium, quite the opposite. Perhaps a more diplomatic approach is warranted. The Magos was silent for a long moment, optical sensors still fixed on the holographic schematic. Then, "Agreed. Skitari, stand down." The augmented soldiers lowered their weapons in perfect unison. The Magos approached the Slayer slowly, mechadendrites retracted in a gesture of non-aggression. "Unknown entity, I am Magos Explorator Theta 77. I apologize for my initial approach. Your technology is beyond my current understanding, but I would very much like to learn. Would you permit non-invasive scanning and data exchange?" The Slayer studied the Magos for a moment, then nodded once. The hologram shifted, displaying different schematics, his weapons, his suit's shield system, even the crucible blade. But notably absent were any schematics of the Argent energy reactor or the more esoteric systems. He was willing to share some information, but not everything. The Magos' mechadendrites extended cautiously, scanning equipment humming as it analyzed the holograms. Fascinating. The energy shielding operates on principles that partially contradict the laws of thermodynamics as we understand them. And this blade, he focused on the crucible schematic, generates a stable energy field that can achieve true demon death. The implications for Ordo Malleus operations alone. He looked up at the Slayer. "Where did you acquire this technology?" The Slayer's response was to dismiss the hologram and point upward, not at the sky, but at something beyond. Other dimensions, other realities. Interdimensional origin, the Magos processed. That would explain the incompatibility with known technological paradigms. "You are not from this universe at all, are you?" The Slayer shook his head. Before the Magos could ask more questions, Castian's vox crackled with Colonel Ven's voice. "Brother Sergeant, the last of the demons have dissolved. The hive is secure. We're beginning casualty assessment and evacuation of survivors to the lower hives. Initial estimates suggest 3,000 survivors from Hive Tertius alone, with possibly more in other hive complexes. It's a miracle, Brother Sergeant. We should all be dead, but we're not. Tell your warrior ally that the people of Tertium Majoris owe him a debt that can never be repaid." Castian relayed the message. The Slayer's only response was a slight nod, acknowledgement, nothing more. He didn't fight for gratitude or glory. He fought because demons needed killing, and he was very, very good at killing demons. "Warrior," Castian said, "the survivors will want to see you, to thank you. Will you come down to the evacuation site?" The Slayer hesitated, then nodded. He followed as Castian led the way toward the transit tunnels, the other Black Templars falling in around them as an honor guard. The Magos and his Skitari followed at a respectful distance, the tech priest still muttering calculations and theological implications to himself. The transit tunnel evacuation site was chaos of the organized variety. Thousands of survivors packed the main concourse, being processed by PDF troopers and administratum scribes. Medici servitors moved through the crowds, treating injuries. Ecclesiarchy priests led prayers of thanksgiving. Children cried, adults wept with relief, and soldiers stood watch with the wary exhaustion of those who'd survived something they shouldn't have. When the Slayer emerged from the upper tunnels, flanked by Black Templars, a hush fell over the crowd. Word had spread, whispered accounts from PDF troopers who'd seen the green-armored warrior fighting demons, vox traffic from the Space Marines, even a few grainy pick captures from surviving surveillance systems. The mysterious warrior who'd appeared from nowhere and turned the tide of a demonic incursion. Colonel Ven approached, saluted, then dropped to one knee. "My lord, I'm Colonel Marcos Ven, 47th Tertium PDF. On behalf of the survivors of this world, I offer our eternal gratitude. You have saved us from damnation itself." The Slayer looked uncomfortable with the formal recognition. He made a gesture for Ven to stand, which the colonel did hesitantly. "My lord," Ven continued, "if there is anything we can offer, supplies, transport, repair facilities for your equipment, you need only ask. The Imperium owes you a debt beyond measure." The Slayer considered, then pointed at the survivors, made a protective gesture, and gave a thumbs up. "Keep them safe. That's payment enough." "We will," Ven promised. "The Imperial Navy will arrive within days for full evacuation and system defense. Until then, we hold." He paused. "My lord, may I ask, where will you go now? Will you remain with us?" That was the question, wasn't it? The Slayer looked around the transit tunnel, at the survivors, at the Black Templars, at the Mechanicus forces. This wasn't his universe. These weren't his people. But they'd been threatened by demons, and he'd done what he always did, killed the demons and saved the innocent. But there were more demons. The warp breach over Tertium Majoris had been just one of thousands across the galaxy, all spawned by the Cicatrix Maledictum. Millions of worlds were under siege, billions of humans threatened by chaos, and if the warp was anything like Doom's hell, and it seemed to be, then demons would keep coming until someone made them stop. The Slayer made his decision. He pointed at himself, then at the wider world beyond the tunnels, then made a gun gesture and a throat-cutting motion. More demons to kill, more people to save. Castian understood immediately. "You intend to continue fighting, to hunt demons across the Imperium?" He nodded slowly. "A worthy crusade, and one the Black Templars would be honored to support. Warrior, if you would accept it, I offer you the hospitality of our chapter. Travel with us. Fight alongside us. We wage eternal crusade against the Emperor's enemies, and you have proven yourself a warrior of unmatched skill against the ruinous powers." The Slayer considered, then nodded. Traveling with the Space Marines made tactical sense. They had ships, intelligence networks, and most importantly, they knew where the demons were. He could kill far more demons with their support than wandering randomly. "Then it's settled," Castian declared. "When the Imperial Navy arrives, we will return to our strike cruiser, the Sword of Righteousness. You will accompany us as an honored ally of the Black Templars." He paused. "Though we will need to call you something. Warrior is insufficient for one of your accomplishments. Do you have a name you prefer?" The Slayer thought for a moment, then activated his holographic display again. He typed something in his armor's interface, and words appeared in Gothic script, the Praetor's suit's translation systems working overtime. "Doomslayer." "Doomslayer," Castian repeated, testing the words. "A fitting name for one who brings doom to demons. Very well, Doomslayer. Welcome to the Eternal Crusade." Around them, the survivors began to cheer, a sound that started small but built, echoing through the transit tunnels. They didn't fully understand what had happened, didn't know the details of the battles fought above, but they knew they'd been saved, and they knew who'd saved them. The green-armored warrior who'd walked into hell itself and walked back out victorious. The Doomslayer stood amid the cheering, surrounded by grateful survivors and Space Marines offering brotherhood, and for the first time in eons, he felt something other than rage. Not happiness, exactly. He'd lost the capacity for simple joy long ago. But purpose, satisfaction, the knowledge that he'd saved lives, not just taken demon ones. Then his motion tracker pinged. His helmet's HUD highlighted movement in the upper tunnels, heat signatures, multiple contacts moving fast. His hand moved to his super shotgun. Castian saw the movement. "Doomslayer?" "What?" A scream echoed from the upper tunnels, then bolter fire, then the unmistakable shriek of demons. "Impossible!" Ven shouted. "The breach is sealed. How are there still stragglers?" Castian realized. Demons that were already in the hive when the breach closed, hiding in the ruins. They must have sensed the survivors gathering. He activated his Vox. All Astartes, defensive positions, protect the civilians. But the Doomslayer was already moving, sprinting toward the upper tunnels with speed that shouldn't be possible in full armor. The Black Templars followed, but even they struggled to keep pace. The Slayer hit the tunnel entrance just as the demons emerged, a pack of 20 bloodletters, driven into a final frenzy by the loss of their warp connection. What followed was a masterclass in close quarters demon slaughter. The tunnel was too narrow for the demons to use their numbers effectively, which meant they had to come at the Slayer in groups of 3 or 4. His super shotgun boomed in the confined space, each blast turning demons into dissolving ichor. When they closed to melee range, he met them with fists, boots, and the occasional chainsaw evisceration. Blood sprayed the tunnel walls. Demon shrieks echoed and died. 90 seconds. 20 bloodletters dead. The Slayer emerged from the tunnel, armor covered in demon ichor, and gave the all-clear signal. The survivors' cheers were quieter this time, more reverent. They'd just witnessed what the Slayer could do when protecting them. It was terrifying and awe-inspiring in equal measure. Well, Brother Thomas muttered to Castian, "Life with the Doomslayer is going to be interesting." Indeed, Castian agreed, watching the Slayer reload his weapons with practiced efficiency. The Emperor truly works in mysterious ways. He sends us a warrior from another dimension, one who kills demons with a purity of purpose I've rarely witnessed. I don't know if this is divine providence or cosmic accident, but I know this. The ruinous powers should be afraid. Very afraid. In the transit tunnels, the survivors settled in for the long wait until Imperial Navy evacuation. Above, in the ruins of Hive Tertius, the last of the demon corpses dissolved into nothing. And standing watch over it all, flanked by Black Templars, the Doomslayer checked his weapons and prepared for the next battle. Because there would always be a next battle. Demons never stopped coming, but neither did he. And in the grim darkness of the 41st millennium, where there was only war, the Doomslayer had found a target-rich environment. Rip and tear until it is done. 6 days later, the Imperial Navy arrived at Tertium Majoris in force. The fleet translated from the warp at the system's edge. A battle group consisting of 2 Luna-class cruisers, 4 Sword-class frigates, and a dozen transport vessels for evacuation operations. Their arrival was preceded by astropathic warnings and authentication codes, ensuring the battered PDF forces didn't mistake them for another threat. On the ground, the survivors had spent those 6 days securing the lower hives, treating wounded, and mourning their dead. The final casualty count was staggering. Of Tertium Majoris's population of 15 million across 3 hive cities, only 47,000 had survived. 99.7% casualties. By any measure, it should have been a complete loss. Total planetary death followed by exterminatus to prevent chaos corruption from spreading. Instead, thanks to 1 interdimensional warrior and 5 Black Templars, there were survivors. 47,000 souls who would live to rebuild, to remember, to pass on the story of the green-armored angel who descended from nowhere and fought hell itself on their behalf. The Doomslayer stood in the ruins of Hive Tertius's primary landing pad, watching the Imperial Navy's Aquila landers descend through the ash-choked atmosphere. Around him, the Black Templars prepared for departure. Brother Sergeant Castian was coordinating with the Navy's ground forces, ensuring proper evacuation protocols. The other Sword Brethren were performing final equipment checks and offering blessings to the PDF troopers who'd fought alongside them. Magos Theta 77 approached, his mechadendrites carrying a data slate. Doomslayer? The tech priest's synthesized voice carried what might have been reluctance. I have compiled my analysis of the limited data you shared. The results are troubling and fascinating in equal measure. Your technology operates on principles that contradict several fundamental theorems of the cult Mechanicus, yet it functions with efficiency that exceeds our most sacred designs. I have 3 conclusions. The Slayer looked at the Magos, waiting. First, your technology is not heretical, as it bears no taint of chaos and shows no signs of demonic corruption. Second, it is not Xenos, as it lacks the aesthetic and functional markers of any known alien species. Third, the Magos paused, optical sensors focusing intently. It is evidence of human technological achievement from a reality where the dark age of technology never ended, or perhaps never began. A humanity that developed along different lines without the Omnissiah's guidance and somehow achieved comparable or superior results. The Slayer nodded slowly. Close enough to the truth. This troubles my faith, the Magos admitted, and there was genuine emotion in his voice. Doubt, wonder, perhaps even fear. The cult Mechanicus teaches that the Omnissiah's templates are the pinnacle of human achievement, that deviation from STC patterns leads only to corruption and failure. But your existence suggests alternative paths, alternative truths. I do not know how to reconcile this. The Slayer considered for a moment, then did something unexpected. He placed one armored hand on the Magos' shoulder, a gesture of understanding, perhaps even sympathy. Then he pointed at his weapons, at the Magos' mechadendrites, and made a gesture that encompassed both. Finally, he pointed at a group of PDF troopers helping evacuate civilians. The meaning was clear enough. Different tools, same purpose. Protecting people is what matters. The Magos was silent for a long moment. Then, perhaps the Omnissiah's wisdom is broader than we understood. Perhaps there are many paths to technological enlightenment, and ours is but one. His mechadendrites twitched. I will need to meditate on this, possibly for decades. But thank you, Doomslayer. You have given me much to consider. As the Magos departed, Colonel Venn approached with a squad of PDF troopers. The colonel looked haggard. 6 days of coordinating relief efforts with minimal sleep would do that. But there was steel in his spine. He saluted sharply. Doomslayer, the evacuation is proceeding smoothly thanks to your efforts. The Navy's medical facilities will care for our wounded, and the Administratum has already designated 3 agri-worlds for refugee resettlement. He paused. I know you're departing with the Black Templars. Before you go, I wanted to say, we will remember what you did here, who you are. The Munitorum will file official reports, but more importantly, the people will tell stories. Our children will know the name Doomslayer as a blessing and a promise, that even in the darkest hour, even when hell itself comes calling, there are warriors who will stand against it. The Slayer nodded acknowledgement. He'd never fought for glory or recognition, but he understood the human need to remember, to make meaning from trauma. If his actions here gave these people hope, that was acceptable. One more thing, Venn added. He gestured, and 2 PDF troopers stepped forward carrying a carefully wrapped bundle. We can't offer much. Most of our resources were destroyed in the incursion, but our forge masters salvaged what they could and crafted this, a small token of gratitude. They unwrapped the bundle, revealing a cloak. It was crafted from reinforced synth fiber, dyed a deep green that matched the Slayer's armor, with a hood and a clasp fashioned from brass, shaped into a stylized skull. Not a chaos symbol, but an imperial death's head. On the back, carefully embroidered in silver thread, was a simple phrase in Gothic, "Doom to demons." The Slayer took the cloak, examined it, then nodded appreciatively. It was practical, additional protection against environmental hazards, and symbolic. He fastened it around his shoulders, the cloak settling naturally over his armor. With the hood up, he looked even more imposing, a faceless, armored figure of vengeance. "It suits you," Castian observed, approaching with his squad. "The Navy's shuttle is ready. Our strike cruiser awaits in high orbit. Are you prepared to depart?" The Slayer took one last look at the ruins of Hive Tertius. The shattered buildings, the burned-out districts, the scars of demonic invasion. Then he looked at the survivors being loaded onto evacuation transports, at the PDF troopers standing watch, at the ecclesiarchy, priests blessing the dead. Life persisting despite hell's best efforts. He nodded. Time to go. The Sword of Righteousness was a Black Templar strike cruiser, 3 kilometers of armored fury designed for rapid deployment and orbital assault. Its hull was decorated with devotional script, purity seals, and the black and white heraldry of the chapter. As the Aquila lander approached, the Slayer got his first good look at the vessel that would be his transport through this new universe. The landing bay was controlled chaos. Servitors hauled ammunition crates. Tech Marines performed maintenance on Thunderhawk gunships. Chapter serfs in black tabards moved with purpose, managing logistics. And everywhere, Space Marines, Black Templars in their distinctive armor, each one a veteran of countless battles, each one a warrior who'd earned their place in the Emperor's finest. When the lander touched down and the boarding ramp extended, the Slayer descended to find an honor guard waiting, 10 Black Templars in full battle plate, bolters held in salute, led by a figure who radiated authority. Marshal Helbrecht, Chapter Master of the Black Templars, one of the Imperium's most renowned warriors, a legend who'd commanded crusades for over a century. He stood in Terminator armor, the ancient tactical dreadnought armor, making him even more imposing than a standard Astartes. His face was scarred, his eyes hard with centuries of warfare, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute command. Doomslayer, Brother Sergeant Castian has made his report. You are the warrior who saved Tertia Majoris, who killed a bloodthirster in single combat, who walked into the warp and returned victorious. Helbrecht studied this Slayer with the gaze of a man who'd seen everything war could offer. I have fought the Emperor's enemies for 137 years. I've seen heroes and cowards, saints and traitors, miracles and horrors, but I have never seen anything quite like you. The Slayer met Helbrecht's gaze steadily, unflinching. Castian believes you are a gift from the Emperor, a weapon sent to aid us in this darkest hour. Others in my command are less certain. They question your origins, your silence, your refusal to acknowledge the God Emperor's divinity. Helbrecht's expression was unreadable. I am a practical man. I care less about theology and more about results. You kill demons with unmatched efficiency. You protect the innocent. You refuse chaos's temptations. That makes you an ally, regardless of your origins. He extended one massive gauntleted hand. Welcome aboard the Sword of Righteousness, Doomslayer. For as long as you wish to crusade against the ruinous powers, you will have the Black Templars' support. We offer you transport, intelligence, resupply, and brotherhood in battle. In return, we ask only that you continue doing what you do best, bringing doom to demons. The Slayer looked at the offered hand, then at Helbrecht's face, then at the assembled Black Templars. This was a crossroads. He could accept their offer, join their crusade, fight alongside them, use their resources to kill demons more efficiently. Or he could refuse, strike out on his own, navigate this new universe alone. The decision was easy. More resources meant more dead demons. He clasped Helbrecht's hand in a warrior's grip. Excellent, Helbrecht said, and for the first time he smiled, a brief, fierce expression. Then let us discuss strategy. The Cicatrix Maledictum has torn the galaxy in half. Thousands of worlds face demonic incursion. The Imperium is stretched thin, barely holding the line. But with you among our forces, we can strike at targets others would deem impossible. Demon worlds, warp rifts, chaos strongholds. His smile widened. We're going to make the ruinous powers regret ever threatening humanity. As Helbrecht led the way deeper into the ship, Castian fell in beside the Slayer. Marshal Helbrecht is not easily impressed, the brother sergeant said quietly. That he welcomed you personally is a significant honor. You've been accepted into the Black Templars' crusade. Not as a chapter member, obviously, but as an honored ally. This is unprecedented. The Slayer nodded, taking in his surroundings. The ship's corridors were decorated with battle honors, banners from defeated enemies, and devotional inscriptions. Chapter serfs bowed respectfully as Helbrecht passed. Space Marines saluted their marshal and studied the newcomer with barely concealed curiosity. They arrived at the Strategium, a command center dominated by a massive hololithic display showing the Segmentum Obscurus, the region of space where the Sword of Righteousness currently operated. Red markers indicated Chaos incursions. Amber showed Imperial forces engaged in combat. Green represented secured worlds. There was far more red than green. "This is our current operational theater," Helbrecht explained, gesturing at the display. 17 worlds under active demonic assault. 4 already lost to Chaos corruption. The Inquisition has called for exterminatus on 3 of them. He zoomed in on one system. But this one, Golan Prime, might still be salvageable. Population of 8 million, mostly agri-workers and minor nobility. Warp breach opened 6 days ago, Nurgle demons pouring through. PDF forces are holding the capital hive, but barely. They have perhaps a week before the corruption becomes terminal and the Inquisition orders planetary sterilization. The Slayer studied the display, noting tactical details. 1 warp breach. Nurgle demons, slower than Kornati, but more resilient in spreading plague. Civilian population still alive. Time limit before exterminatus. He looked at Helbrecht and nodded. "I'll do it." "You understand the mission?" Helbrecht confirmed. "Close the warp breach, eliminate the demon leadership, purge the corruption before it becomes irreversible. We can provide orbital support and a squad of sword brethren, but our main force is committed to holding the Mordian belt. You would be operating with minimal backup." The Slayer's response was to check his weapons. His super shotgun was fully loaded. BFG 9000 was charged. Crucible blade was ready. Minimal backup was fine. He'd stormed hell with less. "Then we make for Golan Prime," Helbrecht decided. "Navigator, plot a warp jump. We depart within the hour." He turned to the Slayer. "Use that time to resupply. Our forge masters have been instructed to provide whatever ammunition and equipment you require. Brother Castian will show you to the armory." As they left the Strategium, Castian said, "You know, most warriors would ask questions, request detailed intelligence, demand assurances of support. You just accepted the mission without hesitation." The Slayer shrugged. Demons needed killing. Civilians needed saving. What else was there to discuss? "Simple faith," Castian mused. "Or perhaps simple purpose. Either way, it's refreshing. The Imperium drowns in bureaucracy and politics. You cut through all that and focus on what matters, protecting humanity from the darkness." He paused. "I think you'll fit in well with the Black Templars. We're not much for politics either. The armory of the Sword of Righteousness was a temple to warfare. Walls lined with bolters, chainswords, plasma guns, melter guns, and more exotic weapons. Ammunition in carefully organized crates. Armor components hanging from maintenance racks. And overseeing it all, a grizzled chapter serf named Corvin, who'd been managing the armory for 40 years. "So you're the Doomslayer," Corvin said, looking the armored figure up and down. "Brother Castian says you need resupply. What are you working with?" The Slayer laid out his weapons on a maintenance bench. Super shotgun, heavy assault cannon, BFG 9000, crucible blade, chainsaw, and equipment launcher. Corvin examined each one with the eye of an expert, occasionally making appreciative noises. "Beautiful craftsmanship," he muttered. "Don't recognize the patterns, but the quality is undeniable. This shotgun," he hefted the super shotgun carefully. "What gauge? What ammunition type?" The Slayer activated his holographic display, showing ammunition specifications. Corvin studied them, then nodded. "We can fabricate compatible shells. Won't be exact matches, but they'll function. The heavy cannon uses standard auto cannon rounds, more or less. We've got those in abundance. The energy weapons. He trailed off, looking at the BFG 9000. Those are beyond me. You'll need to maintain them yourself. The Slayer nodded. He'd expected as much. The BFG used Argent energy cells that couldn't be replicated with Imperium technology. He'd have to use it sparingly. I can offer you additional equipment, Corvin continued. Frag grenades, crack grenades, melter bombs if you're planning to breach fortifications. We've also got some specialized ammunition, Kraken penetrator rounds for armor, Inferno shells for incendiary effect. Might be useful against demons. The Slayer selected several crates of ammunition, a dozen frag grenades, and 4 melter bombs. Corvin helped him organize everything into mag pouches that attached to his armor's webbing. One more thing, the chapter serf said. He retrieved a small device from a locked cabinet, a Vox bead, the standard Imperial communication device. You don't talk much, but you'll need this for coordinating with our forces. It's keyed to the Black Templars' encrypted channels. Press here to transmit, here to cycle through frequencies. The Slayer examined the Vox bead, then integrated it into his helmet's communication systems. His Praetor suit's technology interfaced with the Imperial device seamlessly, adding it to his HUD's display options. Right then, Corvan said, satisfied. You're equipped. Emperor protects Doomslayer. Give those demons hell. The Slayer's helmet tilted slightly. Amusement, perhaps. Give them hell indeed. He knew hell intimately, and he was going to introduce these warp daemons to a version of it they'd never imagined. 4 hours later, the Sword of Righteousness translated into the warp, beginning its journey to Golan Prime. The transition was violent, reality tearing open, the ship plunging into the immaterium, Geller fields activating to protect the crew from the madness beyond. For most of the ship's complement, warp travel was an ordeal to be endured, staying in designated safe zones, avoiding windows, praying for swift passage. The Doomslayer stood in the observation deck, watching the warp flow past. Without Geller field protection, this would have been instant death and madness, but he'd walked through the warp unprotected and survived. Watching it from behind shielding was almost peaceful. Castian found him there, staring into the nightmare beyond the hull. Most people avoid the observation decks during warp transit, the brother sergeant commented. The sight of the immaterium drives lesser minds mad. The Slayer glanced at Castian, then back at the warp. He'd seen worse. I suppose you have, Castian acknowledged. You walked through that and came back unchanged. I've been thinking about that, about what it means. He paused. The Imperium teaches that only faith in the Emperor protects against chaos, that without his divine blessing, mortals fall to corruption instantly. But you have no faith in our Emperor, yet you resist chaos more completely than most saints. How? Thartsis, Slayer considered the question. How to explain that his rage was purer than chaos, because it was focused, controlled, directed at a single purpose. That he'd fought demons for so long that corruption couldn't find purchase in a soul that had been tempered to diamond hardness by eons of warfare. That his hatred of demons was so absolute, so fundamental to his being, that chaos offering him more demons to kill was like offering water to an ocean. He couldn't explain it, not with words. So instead, he pulled up his helmet's recordings, footage from his battles in Doom's hell. Castian watched in silence as the Slayer tore through demons, killed hell priests, destroyed the icon of sin, and purged dimension after dimension. The recordings were hours long, but the brother sergeant watched it all, transfixed. When it finished, Castian was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You've been fighting this war for longer than the Imperium has existed, longer than humanity has walked the stars. This isn't a crusade for you, it's your entire existence. You are rage incarnate, but rage so pure and focused that it transcends chaos. You don't fight because a god commands it. You fight because it's what you are." The Slayer nodded. Finally, someone understood. The Imperium would call you a weapon, Castian continued. A tool to be used and discarded. But you're more than that. You're proof, perhaps. Proof that humanity doesn't need gods or emperors to stand against the darkness. Just will, just purpose, just refusal to surrender. He placed his fist over his chest in salute. It has been an honor fighting beside you, Doomslayer. And it will be an honor to continue doing so. The Slayer returned the salute, his first formal acknowledgement of the Black Templars Brotherhood. They stood together in the observation deck, watching the warp flow past, two warriors from different universes united by a single purpose, protecting humanity from the demons that would devour it. Behind them, the Sword of Righteousness sailed through the Immaterium, carrying them toward Golan Prime, toward another battle, another warp breach, another chance to bring doom to demons, and in the warp itself, in the domains of the Chaos Gods, something stirred. The entities that fed on emotion and madness had noticed the anomaly. The mortal warrior who resisted their temptations, who killed their demons with terrifying efficiency, who walked through their realm and emerged victorious. Khorne had been the first to notice, but now the others were paying attention. Nurgle, the plague god, whose demons infested Golan Prime, began to prepare. This Doomslayer would come to his garden next. Let him come. Let him see that death and decay could not be defeated, only delayed. Let him learn despair. The plague. God was about to learn a very different lesson, that some warriors don't know how to despair. They only know how to kill. The Sword of Righteousness emerged from the warp 3 days later at the edge of the Golan system. The transition back to real space was violent, reality reasserting itself with a shudder that ran through the entire vessel. Klaxons wailed briefly as the Geller fields collapsed and normal space-time resumed. On the bridge, servitors and crew worked frantically to reorient sensors and confirm their position. Marshal Helbrecht stood at the command throne, studying the tactical displays as they populated with data. Navigator, confirm our position. Augur arrays, full sweep of the system. I want to know what we're facing. The responses came in crisp, efficient bursts. Position confirmed, my lord. Golan system, inner orbital zone. We've translated within 6 hours of Golan Prime. Augur returns coming in now, Marshal. Detecting Emperor's Throne. The corruption is worse than reported. On the main hololithic display, Golan Prime appeared. A world that had once been verdant, covered in agricultural zones and modest hive cities. Now, even from orbit, the corruption was visible. Vast swaths of the planet's surface had turned a sickly green-brown, spreading like a cancer. Atmospheric readings showed toxic levels of airborne pathogens, and surrounding the planet, a haze of warp energy indicated the breach was still active and growing. Vox traffic from the surface is minimal, the communications officer reported. We're receiving a distress beacon from the capital hive, Golan Primaris. PDF forces claim they're holding the central districts, but the outer hive is completely overrun. They estimate they have 4 days before defenses collapse completely. And the Inquisition? Helbrecht asked grimly. Inquisitor Voke of the Ordo Malleus is in system aboard the light cruiser Righteous Fury. He's requesting permission to come aboard, Marshal. Helbrecht's jaw tightened. The Inquisition. He'd known they'd be here. Nurgle corruption always drew the Ordo Malleus like flies to rot. Permission granted. Inform the Inquisitor he may dock within the hour, and someone find the Doomslayer. He should hear this. The Doomslayer had spent the warp transit in the ship's training halls, familiarizing himself with the Sword of Righteousness's layout and testing his newly fabricated ammunition. The Black Templars chapter serfs had done excellent work. The shotgun shells weren't quite the same as his original ammunition, but they were close enough. He'd put several hundred rounds through various targets, adjusting his aim for the slight differences in performance. He was in the middle of a maintenance cycle, field stripping his super shotgun and cleaning the mechanisms, when Brother Castian found him. Doomslayer, we've arrived at Golan Prime. The Marshal requests your presence in the Strategium. Also, Castian hesitated. The Inquisition is here. Ordo Malleus. They'll want to meet you, and I should warn you. Inquisitors are complicated. They have authority that supersedes even Space Marine chapters in matters of demonic corruption. They may ask difficult questions about your origins and capabilities. The Slayer reassembled his shotgun with practiced efficiency, loaded it, and stood. He'd dealt with authority figures before, the UAC, the Night Sentinels, various Hell Priests. They all had the same basic approach: demand compliance, threaten consequences, assume superiority. His response was always the same: ignore them and kill demons. If they helped, fine. If they got in the way, he'd deal with that when it happened. Castian led him back to the Strategium, where they found Marshal Helbrecht in conversation with a figure who radiated cold authority. Inquisitor Voke was tall, thin, dressed in black armor decorated with the Scythe symbol of the Inquisition. His face was augmented, one eye replaced with a bionic that glowed red, several data ports visible at his temples. He carried a force sword at his hip and a bolt pistol inscribed with banishment wards. When he saw the Slayer enter, his bionic eye whirred, focusing with unnatural intensity. "So this is the anomaly," Voke said, his voice cultured but cold. "The warrior who appeared from nowhere and slaughtered demons on Tertium Majoris. I've read Brother Sergeant Castian's report. Quite remarkable, if true." "It's true," Helbrecht said flatly. "I've seen the pick captures and interviewed the survivors. The Doomslayer killed a demon prince in single combat and walked into the warp to destroy a breach anchor. He's the most effective demon killer I've witnessed in over a century of service. Effective, perhaps, but also unexplained." Voke approached the Slayer, circling him like a predator assessing prey. "Unknown technology, unknown origins, resistance to chaos corruption that defies standard Imperial doctrine. You understand why this concerns me, Marshal. The Ordo Malleus exists precisely to investigate such anomalies. For all we know, this Doomslayer could be a chaos trick, a demon in disguise, or a corrupted weapon designed to infiltrate Imperial forces." The temperature in the Strategium dropped noticeably. Several Black Templars reached for their weapons. Helbrecht's expression became stone. "Inquisitor," the Marshal said carefully, "you are dangerously close to insulting a warrior who has saved Imperial lives and killed Chaos forces with unmatched efficiency. I would advise caution." "Caution is my purpose," Voke replied. "I mean no disrespect to the Doomslayer's accomplishments, but I must be certain. I will perform a psychic scan to detect any taint of chaos. If he is clean, I will support your mission to Golan Prime. If he is corrupted," his hand moved to his force sword, "then I will do my duty regardless of his past actions." The Slayer's hand moved to his super shotgun. "Stand down!" Helbrecht's command voice cracked like a whip. "Both of you. Inquisitor, you will not threaten an ally aboard my vessel. Doomslayer, the Inquisitor is within his rights to verify absence of corruption. I ask, not order, ask that you permit his scan. It will resolve this matter quickly." The Slayer looked at Helbrecht, then at Voke, then at Castian. The Brother Sergeant nodded slightly. "It's safe. Let him try." The Slayer released his weapon and nodded once. "Fine. Scan me. You won't find anything." Voke approached cautiously, raising one hand. His fingers glowed with psychic energy, not warp-tainted, but the controlled power of a sanctioned psyker trained to detect chaos. "This will feel invasive. Do not resist, or the feedback could harm us both." The psychic probe touched the Slayer's mind, and Voke gasped. His bionic eye flickered. His hand trembled. For 10 seconds he stood frozen, his psychic senses overwhelmed by what he was experiencing. Then he staggered back, breathing hard, his face pale. "Emperor's mercy," he whispered. What are you?" "Inquisitor." Helbrecht stepped forward, concerned. "What did you sense?" "Rage," Vogue said, his voice shaken. "Rage beyond anything I've ever encountered. Not Cornate, there's no chaos taint at all, which is impossible given the intensity, but pure, focused, righteous rage. And beneath that," he looked at the Slayer with something approaching awe. "Eons. I sensed eons of warfare. Battles beyond counting. Demons slain in numbers that would populate entire worlds. He's not human, not anymore, if he ever was. He's been fighting so long that violence has become his fundamental nature. He doesn't just kill demons, he is the death of demons, made manifest." The Strategium was silent. Even Helbrecht seemed taken aback by Vogue's description. "But no chaos taint?" the Marshal pressed. "You're certain?" "Absolutely certain," Vogue confirmed, his composure returning. "Chaos cannot touch him. His hatred of demons is so absolute that corruption would be like trying to corrupt fire with fire. The ruinous powers might as well try to corrupt a chainsword or a bolter. He's a weapon, Marshal, but one that chose its own purpose." He turned to the Slayer and surprisingly bowed. "I apologize for doubting you, Doomslayer. You are no chaos threat. You are, perhaps, the greatest threat chaos has ever faced from a single individual." The Slayer nodded acknowledgement. No hard feelings. The Inquisitor had just been doing his job. "Then we're in agreement," Helbrecht said, relief evident in his voice. "Doomslayer, Inquisitor Vogue, and my forces will coordinate the assault on Golan Prime. Our objective, close the warp breach, eliminate the demon leadership, and purge the corruption before it becomes irreversible. Inquisitor, what intelligence do you have on the situation?" Vogue activated the hololithic display, zooming in on Golan Prime. "The warp breach opened 12 days ago in the northern agricultural zones. Nurgle demons emerged in force, plague bearers, Nurglings, beasts of Nurgle, and at least 2 great unclean ones. They've spread Nurgle's rot across 40% of the planet's surface. Anyone infected becomes a vector for further corruption. The PDF managed to evacuate approximately 8 million civilians to Golan Primaris before the outer hive fell, but they're running out of time." He highlighted a specific location. "The warp breach is here, at the site of the planet's largest agri-processing facility. The demons have transformed it into a garden of Nurgle, a festering stronghold where the corruption is most concentrated. If we're going to close the breach, that's where we strike." "Defenses?" Helbrecht asked. "Substantial. Thousands of plague bearers, hundreds of Nurgling swarms, demon engines, and the 2 great unclean ones. The PDF attempted an assault 3 days ago. They lost an entire regiment, 3,000 soldiers, and gained exactly 0 meters of ground. The corruption is so thick that conventional weapons are barely effective. Flamers help, but the demons just reform from the toxic mist." "Then we use unconventional weapons," Helbrecht decided. He looked at the Slayer. "You've fought Nurgle demons before?" The Slayer nodded. In Doom's hell, he'd fought every type of demon imaginable. Nurgle's plague bearers were slow, resilient, and spread corruption, similar to Hell's Mancubi and Archviles. The strategy was the same. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and don't let the corruption spread. "I'm deploying Sword Brethren Squad Castian to accompany you," Helbrecht continued. 6 Space Marines, including the Brother Sergeant. Additionally, Inquisitor Vogue will provide psychic support and demon banishment expertise. We'll insert via Thunderhawk gunship, supported by orbital bombardment to clear a landing zone. Once on the ground, you fight your way to the breach and destroy whatever's keeping it open. Questions?" The Slayer checked his weapons, confirmed ammunition counts, and shook his head. "No questions. Simple mission: land, kill demons, Close breach, extract. One complication, Voke added. Great unclean ones are greater demons of Nurgle, incredibly resilient, capable of regenerating from almost any wound, and surrounded by auras of disease that can kill unprotected humans in seconds. Even Space Marines struggle against them. You'll need to hit them with everything you have. The Slayer's response was to pat his BFG 9000. He had something for greater demons. Confidence is good, Voke said dryly. Overconfidence gets you killed. But given your record, perhaps confidence is warranted. He activated his Vox. I'll return to the Righteous Fury and prepare my team. We'll coordinate insertion with your Thunderhawks. Emperor protects Marshal. As Voke departed, Helbrecht turned to the Slayer. You've saved one world already. Now you have a chance to save another. The people of Golan Prime don't know you're coming. They don't know that a warrior from another dimension is about to drop into their nightmare and start killing demons. But they'll know soon enough. He placed a hand on the Slayer's shoulder, a gesture of respect and brotherhood. Bring doom to Nurgle's garden, Slayer. Show the Plague God what happens when he threatens humanity. The Slayer's only response was to chamber a round in his super shotgun. The sound echoed through the strategium like a promise. 6 hours later, the assault began. The Thunderhawk gunship Hammer of Dawn descended through Golan Prime's toxic atmosphere, its armored hull shrugging off the corrosive clouds. Inside the troop compartment, the Doomslayer sat surrounded by 6 Black Templars: Brother Sergeant Castian, Brother Thomas, Brother Hadrian, Initiate Brennus, and 2 new faces: Brother Reclusiarch Grimaldus, a chaplain who'd insisted on joining the mission, and Brother Dreadnought Tancred, a venerable warrior entombed in a walking sarcophagus after suffering mortal wounds centuries ago. Grimaldus's skull-faced helmet turned toward the Slayer. I've heard much about you, Doomslayer. A warrior who fights not for the Emperor, but against demons nonetheless. This is unusual, but acceptable. Faith takes many forms. Yours is expressed through action rather than prayer. Perhaps that is more honest. Tancred's Vox speakers crackled. Doomslayer, I have heard you killed a demon prince with a chainsaw. Is this true? The Slayer nodded. Excellent. I like you already. We shall kill many daemons together. The Thunderhawk shuddered as it entered the combat zone. The pilot's voice crackled over the Vox. 30 seconds to landing zone. Orbital bombardment commencing now. Brace for impact. Through the armored viewports, the Slayer saw lance strikes from the Sword of Righteousness hammer the surface, pillars of light that vaporized everything they touched. The bombardment carved a circle of scorched earth in the heart of Nurgle's garden, creating a temporary landing zone. The Thunderhawk touched down hard. The assault ramp dropped and the Slayer was first out. Super shotgun ready. The stench hit him immediately, even through his helmet's filters. Decay, rot, disease, corruption. The ground was a carpet of diseased flesh and fungal growths. The air was thick with flies and spores, and everywhere, the demons. Plague bearers shambled forward in ranks, diseased, one-eyed creatures carrying rusted plagues wards. Nurgling swarms chittered and giggled as they surged across the corrupted ground. In the distance, something massive moved through the toxic mist. A great unclean one, its bloated form visible even at a kilometer's distance. The Slayer raised his super shotgun and fired. The battle for Golan Prime had begun. The first wave of plague bearers died in a storm of buckshot and bolter fire. The Doomslayer advanced into the corrupted garden with his super shotgun booming, each blast reducing diseased demons to dissolving ichor. Behind him, the Black Templars formed a disciplined firing line, 6 Space Marines unleashing coordinated hell. Castian's bolter barked in controlled bursts. Thomas swept his heavy flamer across nurgling swarms, turning them into squealing torches. Grimaldus chanted litanies of hate, while his Crozius Arcanum crackled with power fields. And Tancred, Tancred simply charged forward, his dreadnought assault cannon screaming as hundreds of rounds per second tore through demon flesh. For the Emperor, death to the unclean. Tancred's Vox speakers blared at maximum volume, his enthusiasm undiminished by centuries of entombment. The Slayer had fought in Hell's most corrupted dimensions, but Nurgle's garden was uniquely revolting. The ground wasn't solid. It was a writhing mass of diseased tissue and fungal matter that squelched with every step. Trees grew from piles of corpses, their branches heavy with rotting fruit that burst and released clouds of spores. Pools of toxic sludge bubbled with unnatural life. And the flies, Emperor's throne, the flies were everywhere, forming clouds so thick they obscured vision. A plague bearer lunged at the Slayer, its rusted sword swinging in a clumsy arc. He sidestepped, grabbed its arm, and used the demon's momentum to hurl it into 3 more plague bearers. His chainsaw roared to life, carving through the tangled mass of diseased flesh. Ichor sprayed, demons shrieked, and the Slayer kept moving forward. "Contact left," Brother Hadrian called out. "Beasts of Nurgle, 3 of them." The Slayer's helmet tracked the new threats. Beasts of Nurgle were massive, slug-like demons, each one the size of a rhino transport, leaving trails of corrosive slime. They moved with surprising speed, their eyeless heads tracking the Space Marines with demonic senses. One of them lunged at Initiate Brennus, its lamprey mouth opening to reveal concentric rings of diseased teeth. The Slayer's equipment launcher fired a frag grenade that detonated inside the beast's mouth. The explosion blew out the back of its head, and the demon collapsed into dissolving sludge. The other 2 beasts changed direction, now fixated on the Slayer as the greatest threat. They charged together, slime trails burning through the corrupted ground. "Doomslayer, fall back. We'll provide covering fire," Castian ordered. The Slayer did not fall back. Instead, he holstered his super shotgun and drew the crucible blade. The argent weapon ignited with green fire, and in Nurgle's garden of decay, it stood out like a beacon of purity. He charged to meet the beasts, and when the first one lunged, he slid beneath its bulk and drove the crucible upward, carving a molten line through diseased flesh. The demon's shriek was cut short as argent energy consumed it from within. The second beast tried to crush him with its massive bulk. He rolled aside, came up in a crouch, and severed one of its slug feet with a horizontal slash. The beast toppled, off balance, and he was on it immediately, climbing onto its back, finding the nerve cluster at the base of its skull, and driving the crucible through. True death, even in Nurgle's garden. Magnificent. Tancred's enthusiasm was infectious. I have not seen such demon-slaying prowess since Marshal Helbrecht beheaded a demon prince on Armageddon. Grimaldus's skull-faced helmet turned toward the Slayer. "You fight with a purity of purpose that would shame lesser warriors. Perhaps there is more than one path to righteousness." He raised his croziers. "For the Emperor and the Doomslayer, advance." The Black Templars pushed forward, following the Slayer's relentless advance. They carved through plague-bearer ranks, burned nurgling swarms, and demolished corrupted structures with crack grenades. The Slayer led from the front, his weapons never silent. Super shotgun for groups, heavy assault cannon for sustained fire, crucible blade for anything that got too close. He fought with mechanical efficiency, each movement optimized for maximum demon death. But Nurgle's garden was vast, and the demons were endless. For every plague-bearer killed, 2 more shambled from the toxic mist. Nurgling swarms reformed almost as fast as they were destroyed, and ahead, growing larger with every meter gained, the silhouette of a great unclean one became visible through the corruption. There, Castian pointed. The first greater demon, it's guarding the approach to the central facility. The great unclean one was a mountain of diseased flesh, 7 meters tall, bloated beyond reason, its skin covered in sores that wept pus and maggots. It carried a massive rusted blade in one hand and a plague flail in the other. Its face was a grotesque parody of grandfatherly kindness, complete with a smile that revealed rotting teeth. When it saw the approaching warriors, it laughed, a wet, bubbling sound that echoed across the garden. "Little mortals, Grandfather Nurgle welcomes you to his garden." The great unclean one's voice was jovial, almost friendly. "Come, accept his gifts. Join the eternal cycle of decay and rebirth. Why struggle against the inevitable? All things rot. All things die. Embrace it." The Slayer's response was to load his BFG 9000. The weapon's energy cells hummed as they charged, green light building within the barrel. He took aim at the greater demon's center mass. "Doomslayer, wait!" Castian called out. "Great unclean ones have multiple layers of demonic protection. You'll need to..." The Slayer fired. The emerald plasma sphere crossed the distance in a heartbeat. The great unclean one's jovial expression became confused, then alarmed, then terrified till it realized what was coming. It tried to raise its plague sword in defense, tried to summon demonic wards, tried to... The BFG round struck dead center and detonated. Argent energy exploded outward in a sphere of annihilation. The great unclean one's demonic protections lasted exactly 0.3 seconds before shattering like glass. Its diseased flesh vaporized, layer by layer, as reality-anchoring energy consumed warp stuff. The demon's scream started as a roar and ended as a whimper. When the light faded, there was nothing left but a crater of scorched earth, the only clean ground in the entire garden. The surrounding demons froze. Plague-bearers stopped shambling. Nurglings stopped chittering. Even the flies seemed to pause in their endless swarming. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then every demon in the garden turned toward the Slayer and charged. "They're enraged," Grimaldus shouted. "You've drawn their full attention. Templars, defensive formation. Protect the Doomslayer while he reloads." But the Slayer didn't need protecting. He holstered the BFG, drew his super shotgun, and met the demon charge head-on. What followed was a masterclass in close-quarters combat. He moved through the demon horde like a force of nature, shooting, punching, chainsawing, using every tool in his arsenal. When a plague-bearer got too close, he grabbed its sword arm, broke it, and used the demon's own weapon to kill 3 more before discarding the dissolving blade. When Nurglings swarmed his legs, he activated his equipment launcher's flame burst, incinerating them in a wave of fire. The Black Templars fought alongside him, their own combat prowess on full display. Castian's power sword carved through demon flesh with contemptuous ease. Thomas's heavy flamer created walls of fire that held back the tide. Hadrian and Brennus worked in perfect coordination, one providing covering fire while the other advanced. Grimaldus was a whirlwind of righteous fury, his Crozius pulping demon skulls while he chanted prayers of banishment. And Tancred was having the time of his unlife, his assault cannon never stopping, his dreadnought fist crushing anything that came within reach. "This is glorious," Tancred's Vox speakers crackled. "I have not enjoyed combat this much since the Third War for Armageddon. Doomslayer, you are my new favorite battle, brother." They fought for 20 minutes straight, an eternity in combat time. The ground became a carpet of dissolving demon corpses. The Slayer's armor was covered in ichor and worse. His ammunition reserves were at 50%, but they were still advancing, still pushing toward the central facility where the warp breach pulsed with malevolent energy. Then the second great unclean one appeared. It materialized from the toxic mist like a nightmare given form, even larger than the first, its bulk so massive it crushed corrupted structures just by moving. This one wore a crown of diseased antlers and carried a staff topped with a caged nurgling. Its eyes, all 7 of them, focused on the Slayer with recognition and hatred. "You," it rumbled, its voice like an avalanche of rotting meat. "You are the one who killed my brother. You are the one who brings argent fire to Grandfather's garden." It raised its staff, and the caged Nurgling began to glow with warp energy. You will learn that Nurgle's gifts cannot be denied. You will rot. You will decay. You will join the eternal cycle. The staff slammed into the ground, and a wave of pure corruption exploded outward. The Black Templars' armor, sealants hissed as they struggled to contain the toxic energy. Castian dropped to one knee, his enhanced physiology fighting off diseases that would have killed a normal human instantly. Even Tancred's dreadnought chassis sparked as corruption tried to seep into its systems. The Slayer felt the wave hit him. Concentrated Nurgle's rot, powerful enough to reduce a Titan to rust in seconds. His Praetor suit's shields flared, energy barriers struggling against demonic plague. Warning runes flooded his HUD. Shield integrity dropping 67%, 54%, 38%, but the shields held. Because the Praetor suit had been designed by the makers to fight in Hell's most extreme environments, and Nurgle's corruption, while different, was fundamentally the same: demonic energy trying to unmake reality. The shields adapted, recalibrated, and stabilized at 31%. The Great Unclean One's 7 eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible. Nothing resists Grandfather's gifts. Nothing! The Slayer's response was to reload his BFG 9000, but the weapon's display showed a problem: insufficient Argent energy for another full-power shot. He'd need time to recharge, and time was something he didn't have. The Greater Demon was already advancing, its staff raised for another corruption wave. "Doomslayer!" Castian called out, struggling to his feet. "We'll distract it. You find a way to kill that abomination." The Black Templars opened fire with everything they had. Bolter rounds, plasma blasts, melter shots, all of it hammered into the Great Unclean One's bulk. The demon barely noticed. Its diseased flesh absorbed the punishment, wounds healing almost as fast as they were inflicted. It laughed, a wet gurgling sound, and swung its staff in a wide arc. The blow caught Brother Hadrian, sending the Space Marine flying 20 meters to crash into a corrupted structure. "Hadrian!" Brennus screamed, breaking formation to reach his battle brother. The Great Unclean One prepared to crush the young initiate with one massive foot. The Slayer made a split-second decision. He couldn't kill the Greater Demon yet. His BFG needed time to recharge. But he could hurt it. He could make it focus on him instead of the Space Marines. He activated his equipment launcher and fired all 4 of his melter bombs in rapid succession. The thermal charges arced through the air, magnetically locking onto the Great Unclean One's bulk. For a moment, the demon looked confused, its multiple eyes trying to track the small devices. Then they detonated. Melter bombs were designed to breach fortifications and destroy armored vehicles by generating heat equivalent to a star's core. 4 of them detonating simultaneously on the Great Unclean One's body created a miniature sun. The demon's scream shook the garden, its diseased flesh vaporized, layer by layer. It staggered, one arm completely gone, its torso a crater of burned meat. But it didn't die. Greater demons were not so easily destroyed. The Great Unclean One's wounds began to regenerate, new flesh growing from the burned tissue. It turned its full attention to the Slayer, all pretense of jovial grandfatherliness gone. Now there was only hatred. "You hurt me," it snarled. "Mortal weapons should not hurt me." "What are you?" The Slayer checked his BFG's charge level. 73% and climbing. Not enough yet. He needed to buy more time, so he did something insane. He charged the Greater Demon. "Doomslayer, no!" Castian shouted. But it was too late. The Slayer sprinted across the corrupted ground, dodging swarms of Nurglings and leaping over pools of toxic sludge. The Great Unclean One swung its staff in a devastating arc. He slid beneath the blow, came up running, and activated his crucible blade. The Argent weapon blazed to life, and he drove it into the demon's leg. the one point he could reach. The great unclean one howled. The crucible's energy burned, consumed, prevented regeneration. The Slayer twisted the blade, carving a deep wound, then pulled it free and dodged as the demon tried to stomp him into paste. He rolled, came up firing his heavy assault cannon, and kept moving, always moving, never staying still long enough for the greater demon to land a hit. He's buying us time, Grimaldus realized. Templars, concentrated fire, aim for the wounds, don't let it regenerate. The Black Templars rallied, pouring fire into the great unclean one's injured leg. Bolter rounds chewed through already damaged flesh. Thomas's heavy flamer prevented regeneration with sustained burning. Tancred charged forward, his dreadnought fist slamming into the demon's knee joint with enough force to crack bone. The great unclean one toppled, its massive bulk crashing to the ground. It tried to rise, but the Slayer was already there, climbing onto its back, finding the nerve cluster at the base of its skull, just like he'd done with the beasts of Nurgle. The crucible blade came down and the demon's hand caught him, massive fingers closing around his torso. The great unclean one lifted him to eye level, its multiple eyes blazing with fury. Clever mortal, but not clever enough. I will squeeze the life from you, then I will devour your corpse, then I will... The Slayer checked his BFG's charge level. 94%. Close enough. He activated the weapon one-handed, something that should have been impossible given the recoil, and fired it point blank into the great unclean one's face. The explosion was apocalyptic. Argent energy detonated at zero range, consuming demon flesh, bone, and warp stuff. The great unclean one's grip released as its entire upper body vaporized. The Slayer fell, hit the ground rolling, and came up to see the greater demon's massive corpse dissolving into nothing. Silence fell over the garden. The remaining demons, plague-bearers, nurglings, beasts, simply dissolved, their connection to the warp severed by the death of both great unclean ones. Without greater demon leadership to anchor them, lesser demons couldn't maintain physical form. The Black Templars stared at the Slayer, who stood in the center of a blast crater, his armor scorched and damaged, but still functional. His BFG 9000 was smoking, its energy cells completely depleted. But he was alive, and both greater demons were dead. By the Emperor's throne, Castian whispered. He killed a great unclean one at point-blank range and survived. I told you he was magnificent. Tancred's enthusiasm was undimmed. Doomslayer, that was the most glorious thing I have witnessed in 3 centuries. Grimaldus approached, his skull-faced helmet studying the Slayer with new respect. You are either the bravest warrior I've ever met, or the most insane, possibly both. He placed a hand on the Slayer's shoulder. But you saved Initiate Brennus's life. You saved all our lives. You have earned the Black Templars' eternal gratitude. The Slayer nodded acknowledgement, then pointed toward the central facility. The warp breach was still active, still pulsing with malevolent energy. The greater demons were dead, but the mission wasn't over. They still needed to close the breach. He's right, Castian said. We finished this. Templars, check your equipment. Doomslayer, can you continue? The Slayer checked his weapons. Super shotgun, functional. Heavy assault cannon, functional. Crucible blade, functional. BFG 9000, depleted but recharging slowly. Equipment launcher, out of melter bombs but still capable of firing frag grenades. Armor integrity, 67%. Shields regenerating. He gave a thumbs up. Ready to continue. Then let's end this, Castian declared. For the Emperor, for humanity, and for every soul on Golan Prime who deserves to live free of Nurgle's corruption. Advance. The Black Templars and the Doomslayer pushed forward into the heart of Nurgle's garden, toward the facility where the warp breach waited. Behind them, the dissolving corpses of 2 great unclean ones served as testament to what happened when demons threatened humanity in the Doomslayer's presence. Nurgle's garden was about to learn what Hell had learned long ago. Some warriors don't stop. They don't surrender. They don't know fear. They only know how to kill demons. The central Axrai processing facility had been transformed into a monument to decay. What had once been a sprawling complex of grain silos, processing plants, and distribution centers was now a festering cathedral to Nurgle. The silos had become towers of diseased flesh, their metal exteriors replaced by pulsating organic matter. The processing plants leaked toxic sludge from every opening, and at the center of it all, suspended between three corrupted towers, the warp breach hung like a wound in reality, a swirling vortex of green-black energy that pulsed with the heartbeat of the Immaterium. The Doomslayer stood at the facility's perimeter, studying the breach through his helmet's enhanced optics. His HUD analyzed the energy patterns, comparing them to the breach on Tertium Majoris. Similar structure, similar anchoring mechanism, but larger. This breach had been open longer, had more time to stabilize. Closing it would require destroying whatever demon construct was maintaining the connection. There, Brother Castian pointed to a structure at the breach's base. That wasn't in the original facility schematics. The demons built it. The structure was a grotesque fusion of metal and flesh. A demon engine of some kind, but not any pattern the Imperium had encountered before. It resembled a massive cauldron, easily 20 meters across, filled with bubbling green fluid. Pipes extended from the cauldron into the ground, pumping corruption directly into Golan Prime's soil. And surrounding the cauldron, chanting in a language that hurt to hear, were dozens of plague marines. Chaos Space Marines dedicated to Nurgle, their power armor fused with diseased flesh. Death Guard, Grimaldus identified, his voice grim. Traitor Astartes from the Horus Heresy. They've been fighting for 10,000 years, and they're far more dangerous than daemons. They think like we do, fight like we do, but without honor or mercy. The Slayer's motion tracker highlighted additional threats: automated plague sprayers, demonic turrets, and something massive moving inside the central tower. His tactical assessment was simple: overwhelming opposition, fortified position, limited approach vectors, a suicide mission by any reasonable standard. He started walking toward the facility. "Wait," Castian grabbed his shoulder. "Doomslayer, we need a plan. We can't just charge in. There are at least 30 Death Guard, plus automated defenses, plus whatever's in that tower. Even you can't." The Slayer gently removed Castian's hand, checked his super shotgun's ammunition count, and continued walking. The message was clear. "Watch me." "He's insane," Brother Thomas muttered. "He's magnificent," Tancred corrected. "Doomslayer, wait for us. You cannot have all the glory." The Black Templars followed, because what else could they do? They'd committed to this mission, and the Doomslayer was committed to walking straight into hell. Again, the first Death Guard noticed them when they were 50 meters from the facility perimeter. The traitor Space Marine raised a combi bolter, its barrel corroded and leaking pus, and fired. The Slayer's shields absorbed the rounds, flared and held. He returned fire with his heavy assault cannon, the sustained burst chewing through the Death Guard's power armor. The traitor fell, his diseased body dissolving into toxic sludge. Alarms wailed across the facility. Plague Marines emerged from corrupted structures, their weapons tracking the intruders. Automated turrets swiveled, targeting systems locking on. And from the central tower, something roared, a sound that shook the ground and sent flocks of diseased birds scattering into the toxic sky. "Contact! Death Guard! Multiple targets!" Castian's tactical discipline kicked in. "Brennus, Thomas, suppressing fire. Hadrian, breach those defenses. Grimaldus, prepare banishment rites." The battle erupted into chaos. The Doomslayer charged the Death Guard positions, his super shotgun booming. Each blast staggered the traitor Marines. They were tough, far tougher than normal humans, but the Slayer had killed tougher. He closed to melee range with one death guard, dodged a chain axe swing, and drove his crucible blade through the traitor's chest. The argent energy burned away corruption, armor, and flesh, leaving nothing but dissolving ash. Behind him, the Black Templars engaged with righteous fury. Castian's power sword clashed against a Death Guard champion's plague sword, the two blades screaming as power fields collided. Thomas swept his heavy flamer across automated turrets, melting their targeting systems. Hadrian fired crack grenades into the facility's walls, blowing breaches for easier access. And Tancred simply walked through the Death Guard lines like a battering ram, his assault cannon never stopping, his dreadnought fist crushing anyone foolish enough to get close. "Traitors!" Grimaldus's voice boomed across the battlefield. "You who turned from the Emperor's light, you who embraced corruption and decay, in his name I cast you down." His Crozius Arcanum blazed with golden light, true faith made manifest. When it struck a Death Guard, the traitor Marine screamed as holy energy burned away Nurgle's blessings. Grimaldus was a whirlwind of righteous violence, his prayers of banishment as deadly as any weapon. But the Death Guard were veterans of 10,000 years of warfare. They adapted, coordinated, focused fire on the greatest threats. A plasma gunshot caught Initiate Brennus in the shoulder, burning through his armor. Brother Hadrian took a plague knife to the leg, the demonic weapon injecting toxins that even his enhanced physiology struggled to fight off. The Black Templars were being worn down, the Slayer noticed. He activated his equipment launcher and fired frags grenades in a wide arc, forcing the Death Guard to take cover. Then he charged the plague sprayers, automated weapons that filled the air with toxic mist. His crucible blade carved through their mechanical components, and the sprayers exploded in bursts of flame. With the automated defenses down, the Black Templars could advance without being suppressed. "Push forward," Castian ordered. "Doomslayers cleared a path. Don't waste it." They fought their way to the cauldron, leaving dead Death Guard in their wake. The Slayer reached the massive demon engine first, studying its construction. The cauldron was anchored by 3 chains, each one a fusion of metal and demonic flesh, pulsing with warp energy. Cut the chains, collapse the cauldron, disrupt the breach. Simple. He raised his crucible blade to strike the first chain, and the central tower exploded outward. What emerged was a nightmare made flesh. A demon prince of Nurgle, once a mortal champion who'd ascended to demonhood through centuries of service to the plague god. It stood 12 meters tall, its body a grotesque fusion of human, demon, and diseased insect. 4 arms ending in claws, wings made of rotting flesh. A face that was almost human, but stretched and distorted into something monstrous. And its aura, Emperor's throne, its aura was a wave of corruption so intense that the ground itself died wherever it stepped. "Mortals!" The demon prince's voice was a chorus of buzzing flies. "You dare defile Grandfather's garden, you dare destroy his gifts." Its multiple eyes focused on the Slayer. "And you, I know you." The warp whispers your name. The Doomslayer, the one who walked through hell and returned. The one who killed Khorne's champions and Nurgle's greater demons. The Slayer's response was to aim his BFG 9000. The weapon's charge indicator showed 47%. Not enough for a full power shot, but enough for something. "You think your weapons can harm me?" The demon prince laughed, flies pouring from its mouth. "I have endured for millennia. I have survived the Emperor's wrath, the Inquisition's purges, the wrath of rival gods. You are nothing. You are..." The Slayer fired. The BFG's plasma sphere struck the demon prince center mass. At 47% power, it wasn't enough to kill, but it was enough to hurt. The argent energy detonated, blowing a crater in the demon prince's torso, vaporizing one arm, and sending the creature staggering backward. Its scream of pain and rage echoed across the facility. "Impossible! That weapon! What is that weapon?" The Slayer didn't answer. He was already moving, using the Demon Prince's momentary disorientation to reach the first chain. His crucible blade came down, carving through metal and demon flesh. The chain snapped, and the cauldron tilted, spilling toxic fluid across the ground. No! The Demon Prince recovered, its wounds already regenerating. "You will not destroy Grandfather's work." It lunged with terrifying speed, claws extended. The Slayer dodged, but one claw caught his shoulder, tearing through armor and gouging flesh. Pain exploded across his HUD, actual pain, the first real injury he'd taken since arriving in this universe. His shields had been depleted by the BFG shot, leaving him vulnerable. The Demon Prince pressed its advantage, raining blows that the Slayer barely dodged. Each claw strike hit with force that could shatter rockcrete. Each missed blow left craters in the ground. The creature was fast, strong, and regenerating from the BFG wound with alarming speed. "Doomslayer!" Castian shouted. "Fall back, we'll—" "No," Grimaldus interrupted. "Look at him. He's not retreating. He's learning." The chaplain was right. The Slayer was studying the Demon Prince's attack patterns, timing its strikes, finding openings. He'd fought Demon Princes before. In Hell, they'd been called tyrants, massive demons with similar speed and power. The strategy was the same. Avoid the big hits, exploit the recovery frames, and strike when the enemy was committed to an attack. The Demon Prince swung all four claws in a devastating combo. The Slayer ducked under the first two, sidestepped the third, and caught the fourth claw on his crucible blade. The argent weapon bit deep, severing the claw at the wrist. The Demon Prince howled, and the Slayer pressed forward. Super shotgun blast to the face, chainsaw to the leg. Equipment launcher frag grenade into the chest wound. He's fighting a Demon Prince in melee combat. Brother Thomas's voice carried disbelief and awe in equal measure. "Then we support him," Castian ordered. "Concentrated fire. Aim for the wings. If it can't fly, it can't escape." The Black Templars opened fire. Bolter rounds shredded the Demon Prince's wings, preventing flight. Hadrian's plasma gun burned holes through diseased flesh. Tancred's assault cannon chewed through one leg, forcing the creature to its knees. And Grimaldus charged forward, his crozius blazing with holy light, chanting prayers of banishment that made the Demon Prince flinch. The Slayer saw his opening. The Demon Prince was on its knees, wings destroyed, regeneration struggling to keep up with the damage. He sprinted forward, activated his jump pack. No, wait, he didn't have a jump pack. He improvised, using a pile of rubble as a ramp, launching himself into the air, crucible blade raised high. The blade came down on the Demon Prince's skull. Argent energy exploded through the creature's body, burning from the inside out. The Demon Prince's scream started as rage and ended as terror. Its form destabilized, warp stuff unable to maintain cohesion against the reality-anchoring properties of the crucible. It clawed at the blade, trying to remove it, but the Slayer held firm, driving the weapon deeper, pouring every ounce of argent energy into the killing blow. "Grandfather, forgive me." The Demon Prince's final words were almost pitiful. Then it dissolved into nothing, banished back to the warp with such force that it would take centuries to reform. The Slayer landed, pulled his crucible blade free, and immediately turned to the remaining chains. 2 more to go. His armors. Medical systems were already working on his shoulder wound, injecting combat stims and sealing the damage. His shields were regenerating. He was battered, but functional. The Death Guard, seeing their Demon Prince leader destroyed, broke. Some tried to flee, others fought with desperate fury. But without demonic leadership, they were just traitors in power armor. Dangerous, but not insurmountable. The Black Templars cut them down with righteous efficiency. The Slayer reached the second chain and severed it with his crucible. The cauldron tilted further, now hanging by a single chain. The warp breach above flickered, destabilizing. He moved to the third chain. and felt the temperature drop. His motion tracker went haywire. His HUD filled with warnings. Massive warp signature detected. Reality integrity failing. Recommend immediate evacuation. From the warp breach, something was trying to come through. Something big. Something that made the Demon Prince look like a minor threat. Emperor's mercy. Grimaldus's voice carried genuine fear. That energy signature. It's a greater demon. Something's trying to manifest. The Slayer looked up at the breach, at the massive shape forming within the warp vortex. He looked at the third chain, the only thing keeping the cauldron functional. He looked at his crucible blade, still glowing with argent energy. Decision made. He drove the crucible into the third chain and pulled, using every ounce of his enhanced strength. The chain resisted, demonic flesh fighting back, but argent energy burned through resistance. With a sound like reality tearing, the chain snapped. The cauldron collapsed, spilling its toxic contents across the facility. The warp breach above convulsed, the forming greater demon's shape distorting and fragmenting. Without the anchor, it couldn't fully manifest. The breach began to collapse, the vortex spiraling inward, dragging corruption back into the immaterium. "It's closing," Castian shouted. "Templars, fall back. The warp implosion will..." The breach collapsed with a sound like thunder. A shockwave of displaced reality exploded outward, flattening corrupted structures and throwing everyone to the ground. The Slayer felt the wave hit him, felt reality reasserting itself with prejudice, felt the corruption being burned away by the breach's closure. Then silence. The Doomslayer pushed himself to his feet, checking his surroundings. The facility was in ruins, but the corruption was fading. Diseased flesh reverting to normal matter. Toxic sludge evaporating, the unnatural green tint to the sky clearing. The warp breach was gone, truly gone, sealed by the destruction of its anchor. Around him, the Black Templars were recovering. Castian had a dent in his shoulder plate, but was otherwise functional. Thomas's heavy flamer was damaged, but repairable. Hadrian was being treated by Brennus for his leg wound. Grimaldus was chanting prayers of thanks. And Tancred was laughing. That was glorious. Doomslayer, we killed a demon prince. We closed a warp breach. We saved an entire world. This is the best day I've had in centuries. The Slayer gave a tired thumbs up. Mission accomplished. Castian's Vox crackled with incoming transmissions. Brother Sergeant Castian, this is Marshal Helbrecht. We're detecting the warp breach collapse. Confirm status. Marshal, the breach is sealed. The Demon Prince is destroyed. The facility is purged. We have casualties, but no fatalities. And the Doomslayer... Castian looked at the armored figure standing amid the ruins, battered but unbroken. The Doomslayer has once again proven himself the finest demon killer I've ever witnessed. Excellent work. Inquisitor Voke's teams are moving in to purge remaining corruption. Evacuation transports are descending to Golan Primaris. The planet is saved, Brother Sergeant. You and the Doomslayer have given 8 million people their lives back. Castian relayed the message. The Slayer nodded, then looked out across the facility, at the fading corruption, at the clear sky, at the distant city where millions of civilians would live to see another day. He'd saved another world. Killed more demons, protected more innocent lives. It was enough. For now. Doomslayer, Grimaldus approached, his skull-faced helmet dipping in respect. You have fought with honor, courage, and skill beyond measure. You have saved this world and earned the Black Templars' eternal gratitude. When the chaplains write the chronicles of this crusade, your name will be recorded alongside the greatest heroes of our chapter. The Slayer shook his head slightly. He didn't fight for glory or recognition. He fought because demons needed killing. I know, Grimaldus said quietly. But we will remember nonetheless. That is what we do. We remember those who stand against the darkness, so that their example inspires others. He placed a hand on the Slayer's shoulder. Thank you, Doomslayer, for everything. As the Black Templars prepared for extraction, the Doomslayer stood alone for a moment, watching the sun break through Golan Prime's clearing atmosphere. In his original universe, he'd fought for so long that he'd forgotten what victory looked like. But here, in this new universe, he was remembering. Saving people felt good. Killing demons felt right. And having allies, brothers in arms who fought beside him rather than fearing him, felt almost like belonging. The war against chaos was eternal. The warp would spawn more breaches, more demons, more threats. But for the first time in eons, the Doomslayer felt something other than rage. He felt purpose. And that was enough. 3 weeks after the liberation of Golan Prime, the Sword of Righteousness hung in orbit above the Agri-world, overseeing final purification efforts. Inquisitor Vok's teams had scoured every settlement, burning out the last traces of Nurgle's corruption. Ecclesiarchy priests blessed the soil, sanctifying ground that had been defiled. And slowly, cautiously, the 8 million survivors began to rebuild. In the strike cruiser's Strategium, Marshal Helbrecht stood before a massive hololithic display showing the Segmentum Obscurus. Red markers still dominated. Chaos incursions, demon worlds, warp storms. But 2 markers had turned green, Tertium Majoris and Golan Prime. 2 worlds saved, 95 million lives preserved, and at the center of both victories stood one warrior. The Doomslayer stood nearby, his armor freshly repaired by the ship's tech marines. They'd done excellent work. The gouges from the demon prince's claws were gone, his shields were at full capacity, and his weapons had been resupplied. He looked as dangerous as the day he'd first arrived in this universe. 17 more worlds under active assault, Helbrecht said, studying the display. 4 have fallen completely. The Inquisition has ordered exterminatus, but the others might be salvageable. If we move fast, if we have the right weapons. He turned to the Slayer. You've saved 2 worlds in less than a month. At this rate, you could turn the tide of this entire crusade. The Slayer said nothing, simply watching the tactical display. 17 worlds, millions of people, countless demons. The math was simple. I'm offering you a permanent position, Helbrecht continued. Join the Black Templars crusade officially. We'll provide transport, intelligence, resupply, and tactical support. You'll have access to our full resources, Forge worlds for equipment, astropaths for communication, and the finest warriors in the Imperium fighting at your side. In return, you continue doing what you do best, killing demons and saving lives. It was a generous offer. More than generous. It was unprecedented. Space Marine chapters didn't typically recruit outsiders, especially not mysterious warriors from other dimensions. But Helbrecht was a practical man, and the results spoke for themselves. The Slayer considered for a long moment. He'd always fought alone, first in the UAC facilities, then in Hell, then across dimensions. Solitude had been his constant companion, rage his only ally. But here, in this universe, he'd found something different. Brothers in arms who respected his methods, allies who fought with honor, a cause that aligned perfectly with his purpose. He extended his hand. Helbrecht clasped it firmly, the gesture of warriors sealing a pact. Welcome to the Eternal Crusade, Doomslayer. May the Emperor guide your aim and your enemies know terror at your approach. Behind them, Brother Sergeant Castian and the other sword brethren stood at attention, fists over hearts in salute. Even Tancred, massive in his dreadnought chassis, managed a gesture of respect. This is excellent news, Tancred's Vox speakers boomed. Now we can kill demons together forever. Grimaldus stepped forward, carrying something wrapped in blessed cloth. Doomslayer, the chapter's forge masters, and I have prepared something for you. A gift and a symbol of your place among us." He unwrapped the cloth, revealing a shoulder pauldron, the distinctive armor piece that Space Marines wore to display their chapter heraldry. This one was sized for the Slayer's armor, painted in his signature green with a black trim. On its surface, the Tech Marines had etched a symbol, a stylized skull wreathed in green flame with the words "Doom to Demons" inscribed in Gothic script beneath. "You're not a Black Templar," Grimaldus explained. "You follow no chapter, swear no oaths to the Emperor, but you are our brother in battle, and this marks you as such. Wear it, if you choose, as a reminder that you do not fight alone." The Slayer took the pauldron, examining the craftsmanship. It was beautiful work, functional and symbolic. He attached it to his left shoulder, where it locked into place with a satisfying click. The weight felt right, balanced. He nodded his thanks. "It suits you," Castian observed. "A warrior of green and black. Perhaps the Emperor sent you to us for a reason, even if you don't acknowledge him. Perhaps fate has plans none of us understand." The Strategium's Vox system crackled to life. "Marshal Helbrecht, we're receiving urgent astropathic communication from Segmentum Command. Priority Alpha." "Put it through," Helbrecht ordered. The hololithic display shifted, showing a new sector of space. A cluster of 3 worlds, all marked in crimson. The astropathic message scrolled across the display in High Gothic. "Distress call. Helion system. 3 worlds under simultaneous demon assault, warp breach. Classification, catastrophic. Estimated civilian casualties, 40 million. Imperial forces overwhelmed. Request immediate Astartes intervention. Estimated time before total collapse. 96 hours, the Strategium fell silent. 3 worlds, 40 million people, 96 hours. It was a nightmare scenario, the kind of situation where the Imperium usually wrote off entire systems and ordered exterminatus to prevent chaos from spreading. "That's a suicide mission," one of the bridge officers whispered. 3 simultaneous breaches. No single force could handle that. We'd need an entire crusade fleet. Helbrecht studied the display, his expression grim. Then he looked at the Doomslayer. "We're 4 days away by warp travel. We have 1 strike cruiser, 200 Black Templars, and..." He paused. "1 warrior who's already saved 2 worlds against impossible odds. It's not enough, by any reasonable calculation. It's not enough." The Slayer checked his weapons. Super shotgun, loaded. Heavy assault cannon, loaded. BFG 9000, fully charged. Crucible blade, ready. He looked at Helbrecht and nodded once. "It's enough." "You're certain?" Helbrecht pressed. 3 worlds, 3 breaches, potentially 3 greater demons. We'll be spread thin. I can give you 1 squad per world at most. You'll be operating with minimal support against overwhelming opposition. The Slayer's helmet tilted slightly. Amusement, perhaps. He'd stormed hell itself with less. 3 worlds. That was just a busy week. "He's certain," Castian translated. "And if the Doomslayer says we can do this, I believe him. I've seen what he's capable of. We all have. Then we go to war." Tancred's enthusiasm was infectious. 3 worlds, 3 breaches, 40 million souls to save. This will be glorious. Helbrecht studied his assembled warriors. The sword brethren who'd fought beside the Doomslayer, the chaplain who'd witnessed his prowess, the dreadnought who'd found a kindred spirit. Then he looked at the mysterious warrior in green armor, the one who'd appeared from nowhere and changed everything. "Very well," the Marshal decided. "Navigator, plot a course for the Helion system, maximum warp speed. Vox Officer, send response to Segmentum Command. Black Templars en route, estimated arrival, 92 hours. Tell them to hold the line. Help is coming." He turned to address the entire bridge crew, his voice carrying the weight of command and conviction. "Brothers, We embark on a mission that others would call impossible. 3 worlds hang in the balance. 40 million Imperial citizens face demonic annihilation. The forces of chaos believe they've already won, that no power in the Imperium can stop them. His gaze settled on the Doomslayer. They're wrong. They don't know what's coming for them. They don't know that we have a weapon they cannot anticipate, cannot understand, and cannot stop. A warrior who has fought through hell itself and emerged victorious. A warrior who doesn't know how to surrender, doesn't know how to fail, and doesn't know how to stop. Helbrecht drew his power sword, holding it high. For the Emperor, for humanity, and for the 40 million souls who will live because we refuse to abandon them. To war! To war! The assembled Black Templars roared in response. The Doomslayer didn't roar. He didn't chant. He simply chambered around in his super shotgun, the sound echoing through the strategium like a promise. 3 worlds, 3 breaches, countless demons. They were all going to die. In the immaterium, in the impossible spaces between reality and madness, the Chaos Gods watched. Khorne, the Blood God, sat upon his throne of skulls and seethed with frustration. He'd sent his champions, bloodthirsters, demon princes, entire legions of his finest warriors, and this mortal had destroyed them all. He mocks me. Khorne's voice was thunder and rage. This Doomslayer kills my servants with contempt. He fights with rage that should belong to me, yet he refuses my gifts. He is an insult, an anomaly. He must be destroyed. Nurgle, the plague god, tended his garden of diseases and considered. 2 of his great unclean ones had been permanently destroyed. True death, not simple banishment. That hadn't happened in millennia. He is interesting. Nurgle's voice bubbled with diseased mirth. He resists my gifts. He burns my gardens. He saves those who should embrace despair. Perhaps I should take personal interest. Perhaps I should teach him that all things rot, even hope. Tzeentch, the changer of ways, watched from his impossible citadel and calculated. Thousands of futures, millions of possibilities, all shifting with each action this warrior took. A variable I did not foresee. Tzeentch's voice was layered whispers. He changes fate itself. My plans unravel where he walks. This is unacceptable, and yet fascinating. What would happen if I offered him knowledge? Power, the ability to save every world? Would he accept? Would he fall? Slaanesh, the Dark Prince, reclined in excess and smiled. You all see him as a threat. I see opportunity. He has denied himself everything: peace, rest, pleasure, connection, in pursuit of his singular purpose. Such denial creates hunger. Such hunger can be exploited. When he finally breaks, when the endless war becomes too much, I will be waiting, and his fall will be exquisite. The 4 Chaos Gods rarely agreed on anything. Their eternal conflicts defined the warp itself. But on this matter, they reached consensus. The Doomslayer was a threat that transcended their rivalries. A mortal who walked through their domains and emerged uncorrupted. A warrior who killed their demons with such efficiency that it threatened the great game itself. He had to be stopped, or turned, or destroyed. The Helion system would be their testing ground. 3 worlds, 3 breaches. And this time, the Chaos Gods would send more than demons. They would send champions, artifacts, and their personal attention. They would show this mortal warrior what happened when the ruinous powers focused their full might on a single target. They would teach him despair. They would teach him that even the strongest warrior could be broken. They would teach him that fighting forever was impossible. They were about to learn a very different lesson, that some warriors don't break. Some warriors don't stop. Some warriors have been fighting forever, and they're just getting started. The 3 worlds of the Helion system hung in space like jewels awaiting destruction. Helion Prime, an industrial world of 15 million. Helion Secundus, a hive world of 20 million, Helion Tertius, an agri world of 5 million. 40 million souls total, all facing daemonic annihilation. On Helion Prime, the warp breach had opened in the planetary capital, and corneted demons poured through in endless waves. Bloodletters, flesh hounds, bloodthirsters, all the fury of the blood god made manifest. The PDF fought with desperate courage, but they were being overwhelmed. Blood ran in the streets. Skulls piled in pyramids. Khorne's tally grew with every passing hour. On Helion Secundus, the breach spawned horrors of Tzeentch. Pink horrors, blue horrors, flamers, and lords of change. Reality itself was breaking down, buildings shifting through impossible geometries, citizens driven mad by visions of futures that should not be. The Arbites tried to maintain order, but order had no meaning when the laws of physics were suggestions. On Helion Tertius, Slaaneash's demons brought excess and corruption. Demonettes, fiends, keepers of secrets, all promising pleasure, all delivering damnation. The agri-world's peaceful population had no defense against such temptations. Entire settlements had already fallen to hedonistic cults, their inhabitants lost to endless sensation. 3 worlds, 3 chaos gods, 3 different flavors of damnation. And racing toward them through the warp, a strike cruiser carrying 200 Space Marines and 1 warrior who'd already made the chaos gods bleed. The sword of righteousness would arrive in 92 hours. The question wasn't whether they could save the Helion system. The question was how many demons the Doomslayer could kill before the chaos gods realized they'd made a terrible mistake. In the ship's armory, the Doomslayer prepared his weapons with methodical precision. He cleaned his super shotgun, loaded fresh shells, checked the firing mechanism. He calibrated his heavy assault cannon, ensured ammunition feeds were clear, tested the barrel rotation. He charged his BFG 9000 to full capacity, verified energy cell integrity, confirmed targeting systems were optimal. He sharpened his crucible blade, though it never truly dulled, and ran diagnostic checks on his Praetor suit. Brother Castian found him there, surrounded by weapons and ammunition crates. 3 worlds, the brother sergeant said quietly. 3 simultaneous assaults. We'll have to split our forces. 1 squad per world. You'll be operating largely alone on whichever world you choose. The Slayer looked up from his work, then pointed at the tactical display showing all 3 worlds. His meaning was clear. I'll hit all 3. All 3? Castian's voice carried disbelief. Doomslayer, even you can't be in 3 places at once. You'll have to prioritize. Choose which world needs you most and... The Slayer shook his head. He pulled up his armor's holographic display, showing a tactical plan. Deploy to Helion Prime first. Close breach, extract. Deploy to Helion Secundus. Close breach, extract. Deploy to Helion Tertius. Close breach, extract. Total estimated time, 72 hours. Castian stared at the plan. You want to save all 3 worlds, sequentially, in 3 days. He paused. That's insane. That's impossible. He looked at the Doomslayer's helmet, at the implacable determination radiating from the armored figure. That's exactly what you're going to do, isn't it? The Slayer gave a thumbs up. Emperor preserve us, Castian muttered. You're either the bravest warrior I've ever met, or the most insane. Possibly both. He placed a hand on the Slayer's shoulder. But if anyone can do this, it's you. We'll support you however we can. Marshal Helbrecht is already coordinating with the PDF forces on each world. We'll have extraction ready the moment you close each breach. The Slayer nodded, then returned to his weapons maintenance. 3 worlds, 3 breaches, 40 million people depending on him. Just another day in the war against hell. Brother Tancred's voice boomed from the armory entrance. Doomslayer, I have heard your plan. It is magnificent. Can I come with you? I promise I will kill many demons and only slow you down a little. Despite everything, despite the impossible mission, despite the millions of lives at stake, despite the chaos gods themselves preparing to face him, the Doomslayer's shoulders shook slightly. He was laughing. For the first time in eons, the warrior who'd fought through hell itself was laughing. Because he'd found brothers in arms who matched his madness. Because he'd found a cause worth fighting for. Because after so long alone, he'd finally found a place where he belonged. The Chaos Gods wanted to teach him despair. They were about to learn that some warriors don't know how to despair. They only know how to fight, and the Doomslayer was just getting started. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.